Chapter 860. What appeared in the range of Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness was a round-faced, somewhat chubby late-stage eternal cultivator. He didn't look too old. But because of his chubby face, he looked like an oversized teenager. Ning Cheng was ready to take action. He was the one who first discovered the law soil. He had lost the law soil because of his lack of experience. He didn't know that there was another way to snatch law soil underground. As for this round-faced fat cultivator snatching the law soil, Ning Cheng didn't feel angry. He just wanted to snatch it back. In this kind of place, it was natural to be quick and not get anything. Therefore, there was nothing to be angry about. In a place that relied entirely on strength, there was nothing to be polite or fearful about. This round-faced fat cultivator seemed to know that Ning Cheng was about to take action. Therefore, after he snatched the law soil, he didn't leave. Instead, he waved his hand and opened up a space between him and Ning Cheng. At the same time, he spoke up eagerly, "This friend, please wait." Ning Cheng's domain locked onto this fat cultivator and spoke up with a calm tone, "Who discovered this law soil first?" The round-faced fat cultivator quickly replied, "Of course, this friend found it first. I didn't leave and wanted to discuss it with you. If I wanted to leave, you can see my talisman. You can just activate it and leave at any time. Besides, my cultivation isn't any worse than yours. If I wanted to be stronger, I wouldn't have talked to you." After saying that, the fat cultivator raised the talisman in his hand. At the same time, he stretched out his domain as if to prove his strength. Ning Cheng spoke up with a calm voice, "You can give it a try." The round-faced fat cultivator smiled and even put away the talisman in his hand. "Friend, I sincerely want to discuss with you. I don't want to snatch it and leave. This piece of law soil is half the size of a fist and is indeed precious. But what kind of person am I, Peng Shan? Even if it's something precious, I won't snatch it. I really need this thing, which is why I snatched your law soil. Friend, you can rest assured that I will definitely give you some compensation." Ning Cheng's killing intent dissipated a lot after the round-faced fat cultivator's words. If this fellow snatched it and left, he would have definitely killed him. "Then how about this, you split the law soil in half for each of us." Ning Cheng's tone eased a bit. The round-faced fat cultivator called Peng Shan had a bitter look on his face. "Friend, if I could, I would definitely do that. Law soil could be separated, but once separated, its value would greatly decrease. Moreover, it wouldn't be conducive to the absorption of the Dao fruit tree. For example, this piece of law soil in my hand, if separated, wouldn't even be worth 1/10 of its original value." Just because Ning Cheng said that he urgently needed the law soil, he shouldn't even think about taking it for himself. Seeing Ning Cheng's expression turning a little ugly, Peng Shan quickly took out a piece of law soil not much bigger than a fingernail and said, "I'll give you this small piece of law soil and give you 5,000 points, plus 50,000 spirit crystals. I also promise to owe you a favor. What do you think?" After Peng Shan stated his conditions, Ning Cheng still didn't say anything. He quickly continued, "You might not know me, but I'm from the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain. If there's anything you can't handle in the future, you can use this to ask me for help. You should know about Flaming Feather God Mountain, right? That's one of the Grand Essence 3 sacred mountains." After saying that, Peng Shan took out another jade token and shook it in his hand. Ning Cheng shook his head and said, "I don't know about the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain." Peng Shan suddenly felt a little discouraged. There was actually someone who didn't know about the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain. Most people would have already shown envious looks when he mentioned the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain. But Ning Cheng's next words made Peng Shan's eyes light up. "However, I agree to your conditions." When Peng Shan heard it, he immediately put the jade token and the fingernail-sized piece of law soil into a ring. After throwing 50,000 spirit crystals into the ring, he handed the ring to Ning Cheng. "Thank you so much, friend. Remember that my name is Peng Shan. By the way, how should I address this friend?" Ning Cheng took out a black card and said, my name is Ning Cheng. Do you want to give me your points first? Brother Ning is right. I'll give you my points. After saying that, Peng Shan took out his own point card. His point card was just a white card. Although it was a bit higher than Ning Cheng's, it wasn't much higher. The exchange of points required the consent of the owner. Otherwise, even if you snatched the other party's point card, you couldn't take away the other party's points. When Ning Cheng saw Peng Shan transfer the points to him, Peng Shan's point card only had 5,000 points. It immediately made him feel a little better about this Peng Shan. This fellow only had 5,000 points. If he had more points, maybe he would have given him more points. After transferring 5,000 points to Ning Cheng, Peng Shan looked particularly happy. Brother Ning, thank you so much this time. I got what I wanted, so I'm going back. By the way, this is for you. After saying that, Peng Shan took out a white ball. This is a treasure for snatching lost soil. Even if you find lost soil later, with this thing, you can immediately snatch the other party's lost soil. I don't need it now, so I'll give it to Brother Ning. Ning Cheng already knew that Peng Shan had used some means to snatch the lost soil in a short time. Now, Peng Shan really took out this thing. Ning Cheng smiled and refused Peng Shan's gift. He didn't need it. Okay, Brother Ning is open and above board. I'll take my leave first. If Brother Ning needs my help in the future, you must remember to come to the Flaming Feathers Spirit Mountain to find me. After Peng Shan gave Ning Cheng a thumbs up, his figure flashed, and he instantly escaped from the ground. Seeing Peng Shan leave, Ning Cheng also quickly escaped from his spot. But he didn't rush out of the ground. Instead, he quickly moved underground. Before, he had agreed to trade with Peng Shan. Apart from having a good impression of Peng Shan, he also found that he also had this lost soil. Lost soil covered the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. He didn't care about it before, nor did he think about it. But now, he finally remembered what was going on. The mysterious yellow bead was still in the process of taking shape, and the laws around the edge of the mysterious yellow bead continued to condense and grow. He didn't need to look for lost soil in this place at all. He just needed to dig up some soil at the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. Therefore, what Ning Cheng urgently needed now was to enter the mysterious yellow bead and see if the soil in the mysterious yellow bead was lost soil. If it was, then he would have made a fortune. Ning Cheng rushed all the way down for nearly half a day. Even he didn't know where he was before he finally stopped. Then, Ning Cheng began to arrange a concealment array. After arranging the concealment array, he took out the drop of drowning water. He wanted to use this drop of drowning water to cover up the aura of the mysterious yellow bead. After arranging everything, Ning Cheng entered the mysterious yellow bead and went straight to the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. The mysterious yellow bead was no longer the same yellow as before. After he gathered the 4 origins, the mysterious yellow bead had gained a variety of life auras. The colors had also become rich and colorful, and even the outlines of mountains and rivers could be seen. The mysterious yellow bead originally belonged to Ning Cheng. Therefore, Ning Cheng could walk around the mysterious yellow bead with ease. With just a thought, he arrived at the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. Ning Cheng took out the bit of lost soil he had traded with Peng Shan and dug out some soil from the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. Although the 2 clumps of soil contained different auras of laws, the soil dug out from the edge of the mysterious yellow bead was also lost soil. Ning Cheng slowly calmed his inner excitement and put down the lost soil from the mysterious yellow bead. After confirming this, he calmed down instead. He had to consider some issues. First, the mysterious yellow bead hadn't completely formed his world yet. Once he dug out the lost soil from the edge, would it cause a chain reaction? Second, if the lost soil he dug out from the mysterious yellow bead was different from the lost soil outside, would powerhouses discover it? If someone suspected that he had a good fortune world because of the lost soil he dug out, it wouldn't be a matter of earning points. After thinking about it for a long time, Ning Cheng decided to go back up, dig out some soil, and then put it on the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. If this soil could condense into law soil, then everything would be solved. Time passed by quickly, and it had already been 3 months since Ning Qing entered the Broken Land. 3 months ago, he dug out a bunch of large and small soil and threw it on the edge of the mysterious yellow bead. After that, he stayed in the mysterious yellow bead and refined the 7 Bridges Realm book while waiting for the law soil to slowly form. After collecting the 5 bridge spirit techniques from the 7 Bridges Realm book, Ning Qing no longer felt as clueless as before when refining it. In just 3 months, Ning Qing refined more than a dozen restrictions on the 7 Bridges Realm book, which transformed into a book shadow that fell into Ning Chang's Zifu. Ning Chang's Zifu contained the everlasting Blue Thunder City and the celestial river flame. As soon as the 7 Bridges Realm book entered his Zifu, it floated above the celestial river flame and the everlasting Blue Thunder City. Obviously, the grade of the 7 Bridges Realm book was higher than the divine flame celestial river flame. Ning Qing felt so happy that he forgot about the law soil waiting for him to check it out. He immediately started comprehending the spirit technique, the first bridge of coping. In just half a day, he fell into an epiphany. This epiphany lasted for a few more months, and the Tao charm of the 7 Bridges Realm book merged with Ning Chang's thoughts. At the same time, the vague outline of the bridge of coping in the 7 Bridges Realm book slowly became clearer. Ning Qing felt a mysterious feeling of control, and he suddenly stood up from the epiphany. At the same time, he raised his hand and waved. A vague outline of a stone arch bridge appeared in front of Ning Qing, with a few scribbled words at the end of the bridge, first bridge of coping. Yin Qi and Tao charm flowed over the bridge, while blood and Qi surged under the bridge. Boundless Taoist rhyme aura surrounded the bridge, forming scenes after scenes. This was no longer an illusion, but a real scene. It seemed that as long as one saw this bridge, they would have to step on it, without any possibility of retreating. This was the path that every mortal had to walk, the first bridge of coping. Whether you were an immortal, a god, a ghost, a demon, or a devil, as long as you saw the first bridge of coping, you would become immortal. No return in life, no retreat in death, once you entered, you would never return. No return, no reincarnation, only the blood river to wash away your sins. Chapter 861. A sense of weakness washed over him, and the first bridge of coping in front of Ning Qing gradually turned illusory before finally disappearing. But Ning Qing didn't feel disappointed. Instead, he looked at the 7 Bridges Realm book in his Zifu in surprise. He had already grasped the first bridge of coping, but he couldn't display it in its entirety because his strength wasn't high enough. Moreover, the power of the first bridge of coping had also greatly exceeded his expectations. Compared to the 5-colored star splitter arrow, Ning Qing preferred the first bridge of coping. Although the 5-colored star splitter arrow was powerful, the requirements it placed on him were too much. His hair was still gray because of the damage to his essence energy caused by shooting the 5-colored star splitter arrow. As his strength rose in the future, the power of the first bridge of coping would only increase. His 7 Bridges Realm book contained 5 Bridges spirit techniques. In other words, no matter what, he would at least comprehend 5 of the 7 bridges in the future. It was time to take a look at his law soil. After comprehending the first bridge of coping, Ning Qing was in a good mood and quickly arrived at the place where the soil was placed. Ning Qing had not picked up the soil, but he knew that he had succeeded. The soil he threw down carried some nomological aura. Clearly, it was developing in the direction he needed. As long as the soil didn't exceed the size of 2 fists, it had already transformed into law soil. The slightly larger ones were still in the process of transforming. Ning Qing quickly put the soil that had turned into law soil into a jade box and sealed it with restrictions. His mysterious yellow beads world wasn't the same as the outside world. If he didn't put away this law soil as soon as possible, it would turn into a part of the laws of the earth and become the foundation of the mysterious yellow beads world. Once that happened, the law soil would lose its effect. The law soil of the broken land might not transform into earth veins and foundations even after countless years because the laws here were already broken. The more time passed, the bigger the law soil would become. After comprehending the first bridge of coping and obtaining the lost soil, Ning Qing naturally wanted to go to the quest hall to hand in the tasks to earn points. As soon as Ning Qing rushed out of the ground, he saw two cultivators engaged in a fierce battle. There were also some cultivators watching from the sidelines. Ning Qing didn't need to go over and ask around to understand that this must be a fight over the lost soil. From the looks of it, searching for lost soil in this place was not a safe thing to do. Once two people found it at the same time, a battle would be inevitable. Regarding this kind of thing, Ning Qing did not like to watch the excitement. He didn't even bother to pay attention to what the two people fighting looked like. He was about to leave. "This senior apprentice brother, please help." A sound transmission fell into Ning Cheng's ears. It turned out to be the voice of a female cultivator. "Huh, it's you." Ning Qing turned around and saw the female cultivator who sent him the sound transmission. He immediately recognized the female cultivator who called out to him. Half a year ago, he found out about the broken lands because of a male and female cultivator. It was that male cultivator who gave him an introduction to the broken land. Only then did Ning Qing realize that the lost soil here was very valuable. Moreover, this female cultivator was the one who came with that male cultivator. However, at this moment, this female cultivator's aura was in a mess. Clearly, her injuries were not light. Ning Qing immediately understood why this female cultivator called out to him and asked him for help. Of the two cultivators in the battle, one of them was with this female cultivator, the male cultivator who gave him the jade strip. Since this female cultivator asked him to help, then it should be to help the male cultivator who was with her before. At this moment, not only was the male cultivator at a disadvantage, but he was also being suppressed by the other party's divine ability. Even his domain was in tatters and the blood energy on his body was thick. His injuries were no weaker than the female cultivators. "This senior apprentice brother, my husband and I found a piece of lost soil here. He came a little later than us, but he insisted on sharing the lost soil with us. It's just too much bullying. If senior apprentice brother is willing to help, my husband and I would rather." Before this female cultivator could finish, Ning Qing stopped her. "Wait, you can keep the lost soil for yourselves." After saying that, Ning Qing walked up. He understood that this couple must have offended an extraordinary person. If it were an ordinary person, someone would have already come to help them if they were willing to take out the lost soil. "The two of you, please stop and listen to me." Ning Qing didn't make a move directly. Instead, he used his domain to suppress the two people fighting. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This kind of thing had happened many times in the broken land. It was just like the situation between him and Peng Shan. Only, he and Peng Shan had settled it peacefully. As long as one wasn't a fool, one wouldn't intervene in such things under normal circumstances. But Ning Qing had to care about it. For him, this couple had helped him a lot. Although the couple's help wasn't worth mentioning, he couldn't pretend not to hear them just because the other party wanted his help wasn't a trivial matter. Ning Cheng's domain's imposing aura was extremely powerful. Although he didn't fully stretch out his domain, in front of these two late-stage eternal cultivators, his domain still broke through the domain-imposing aura created by the two people fighting. The surrounding cultivators, on seeing someone meddling in other people's business, started whispering to each other. This couple were rogue cultivators and hadn't joined any alliances. Moreover, the couple fighting for the lost soil was a member of the Beyond Heaven Path. Although the Beyond Heaven Path wasn't as powerful as the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the Tao Confirming Alliance, or the Spirit Thunder Alliance, it was still a well-known alliance within the Grand Essence Ruins. Facing such a situation, not to mention not knowing this couple, even if someone knew them, they wouldn't necessarily come forward to help. Because of this, some people felt strange when they saw Ning Qing coming forward to mediate. Some people even guessed which alliance Ning Qing came from. After all, only cultivators from the Grand Alliance would dare to mediate for the lost soil. As soon as Ning Cheng's domain suppressed them, the male cultivator, who had fallen into a disadvantageous position, seized the opportunity to retreat and land beside Ning Cheng. At the same time, he spoke up with cupped fists. "Many thanks for the help, friend. Jing Weiran can't thank you enough. Jing Weiran's aura wasn't only weak, but it also felt unstable. From the looks of it, he had suffered heavy injuries. After thanking Ning Cheng, he rushed to the side of the female cultivator, held her up, and asked anxiously, "Yu Ling, are you okay? Who are you? Why are you interfering in other people's private affairs?" The cultivator fighting Jing Weiran was a square-faced man with thick lips. Although he also had a late-stage eternal cultivation, his aura felt much deeper than Jing Weiran's. Without waiting for Ning Cheng to speak, the female cultivator named Yu Ling spoke up loudly, "Jing Wuya, do you have any shame? Do you want to rob us just because you're from the Beyond Heaven path? We clearly saw the law soil first, yet you still have the face to say that it's your own private affairs?" The man named Jing Wuya didn't care about Yu Ling's curses at all. He still stared at Ning Cheng coldly and said, "If you don't tell me the reason, then I'll take it as you provoking my Beyond Heaven path. If it's just a misunderstanding, then if this friend leaves now, I, Jing Wuya, will definitely repay you in the future." If it weren't for Ning Cheng's domain imposing manner, he would have already started. Ning Cheng sneered in his heart. Repay in the future. The murderous aura emanating from this male cultivator named Jing Wuya had almost condensed into a solid substance. Moreover, he even used the Beyond Heaven path to threaten him. This fellow didn't have the slightest intention of repaying him in the future. Even if Ning Cheng retreated now, this enmity would most likely be formed. Once Jing Wuya killed this couple, he would most likely be hunted down. Ning Cheng spoke up with a flat tone, "Jing Weiran and his wife are my friends. Please give me some face and let this matter go. If Dao friend feels that it's a loss, then..." Originally, Ning Cheng planned to ask Jing Weiran and his wife for some compensation. After all, Jing Weiran and his wife weren't opponents of this person. However, he didn't say this out of fear of Jing Wuya, but out of consideration for Jing Weiran and his wife. After all, if he compensated Jing Wuya, it would be equivalent to letting this matter go. Otherwise, as long as Jing Weiran and his wife tried to survive in this place, they would have to face the threat of the Beyond Heaven path. For himself, he didn't fear the Beyond Heaven path, but he also didn't want to form an enmity with the Beyond Heaven path over such a trivial matter. But before Ning Cheng could speak about the other conditions, Jing Wuya sneered, "Your face? What's your face worth? Brother Yu Yen, let's join forces and kill this thing who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." As Jing Wuya's voice fell, a lightning-like figure appeared behind Ning Cheng. Together with Jing Wuya, the two of them surrounded Ning Cheng from the front and the back. This fellow was also a late-stage eternal powerhouse, and his aura didn't lose out to Jing Wuya. After this cultivator named Yu Yen arrived, he didn't even speak half a word of nonsense. Instead, he brought out his weapon and unleashed his domain to suppress Ning Cheng. Moreover, the naked killing intent coming from this domain was completely exposed. Ning Cheng's face sank. He understood that this matter wouldn't end well. He had always been a person who didn't like to talk nonsense. Since the other party wanted to kill him, he didn't want to take a step back. Bringing out a top-grade Dao artifact long spear, Ning Cheng's domain's imposing aura skyrocketed once again. This time, it was no longer in a mediating state like before. Ning Cheng's principle was to avoid fighting if possible. Once he started, he wouldn't show any mercy. When the surrounding cultivators saw Ning Cheng bring out a top-grade Dao artifact long spear, most of them shook their heads speechlessly. Some of them couldn't bear to continue watching. In the Grand Essence ruins, even the worst late-stage eternal cultivator would have at least a low-grade spirit artifact, or at least a half-spirit artifact. But people like Ning Cheng, who used a Dao artifact long spear, were truly rare. Jing Weiran, on seeing Ning Cheng bring out a Dao artifact long spear, quickly brought out a weapon and rushed up to help. Ning Cheng suddenly spoke up, "Brother Jing, you don't have to come up. Just stay here and heal. Also, help me hold the line. I have something to ask in a while." Jing Weiran froze for a moment, but he still listened to Ning Cheng's words and didn't go up. He was also an arrow at the end of its flight at this moment. If Ning Cheng hadn't helped him, he would have already died. The cultivators watching the battle naturally couldn't see Ning Cheng's domain suppression. But Jing Wuya and the other cultivator, who had just arrived, could feel the powerful suppression coming from Ning Cheng's domain. Jing Wuya's expressions changed. By now, how could he not understand that Ning Cheng hadn't used his full strength when he tried to mediate the fight? But this time, without waiting for him to speak, Ning Cheng had already started. The top-grade Dao artifact long spear turned into endless spear patterns and swept out. From the looks of it, Ning Cheng was trapped by two cultivators, one from the front and one from the back. But after Ning Cheng started, the domain around him gave off cracking sounds. Before the surrounding people could clearly see whose domain had shattered, the spear pattern traces that filled the sky directly ignored the space and covered the two of them in an overwhelming manner. The domain shattered inch by inch, and the surrounding space disappeared. As the spear patterns covered the sky, Jing Wuya's heart instantly sank to the bottom. He couldn't even bring out his spirit technique. He knew that he was in big trouble. Chapter 862. Stop! Jing Wuya screamed. If he couldn't even use his spirit technique, it meant that he and Ning Cheng weren't on the same level at all. If they weren't on the same level, continuing to fight would only be courting death. Not only did Jing Wuya scream out, even Yu Yan, who had rushed over without saying a single word and directly attacked Ning Cheng, also felt regret. If he had known that Jing Wuya's opponent was such a terrifying fellow, suppressing him to the point that he couldn't even attack, he would never have acted so coldly. This is a misunderstanding. For the sake of his life, how could Yu Yan continue to act so coldly? Misunderstanding? Ning Cheng sneered. If his cultivation were worse, this misunderstanding would have killed him a long time ago. Not to mention stopping, Ning Cheng not only didn't stop, but his celestial essence also surged out violently. He would never give these two fellows a chance to breathe. If he wanted to do it, he would kill them all at once. Let these two fellows take a breather and then slowly fight with him. He wasn't in the mood to do so. What's more, the traceless spirit technique was silent. Since he had cast it, he wouldn't take it back. He didn't want to leave even a trace on his traceless spear pattern. Poof! While the spear pattern trapped Jing Wuya and Yu Yan, Ning Cheng's top-grade Dao artifact long spear tore the two into pieces. The sound of celestial essence explosion disappeared, and Ning Cheng raised his hand to put away the two rings. The surrounding cultivators felt dumbfounded. They couldn't even react before the battle ended. Who was this gray-haired cultivator? How could he be so terrifying? How could he be an eternal cultivator? This person definitely surpassed the eternal realm. Even if he hadn't reached Dao confirming realm, he was still a powerhouse. If you don't have anything else to say, then please leave. Just now, the two people from Beyond Heaven Path took the initiative to attack me. Presumably, everyone saw it. Although I'm in the right, I don't like to meddle. So I hope that everyone can forget about today's matter. If one day I find out from someone in Beyond Heaven Path that I did it, even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I will hunt you down. Ning Cheng knew that his threat wouldn't have much effect, but it could at least ease the situation for a while and let Beyond Heaven Path know that he killed the two cultivators from Beyond Heaven Path. With Ning Cheng's strength reaching such a level, only a fool would continue to stay here. After Ning Cheng's words came out, the crowd immediately dispersed, leaving only Ning Cheng and the Jing Weiran couple. Jing Weiran seemed shocked by Ning Cheng's strength. Only when Ning Cheng walked over did he react. He quickly bowed in fear and thanked Ning Cheng. At the same time, he took out a jade box and handed it to Ning Cheng. Many thanks for Senior's help. This is a piece of law soil that my wife and I obtained. Ning Cheng waved his hand. I don't have any use for this law soil. You and your wife should leave this place as soon as possible and find a way to escape. I killed a cultivator from Beyond Heaven Path, so I don't think they'll let us go. Jing Weiran and Yuling apologized to Ning Cheng with shame. If it weren't for them, Ning Cheng wouldn't have offended the Beyond Heaven Path. For this couple, even if Ning Cheng did not remind them, they would have already flown far away. The husband and wife were just insignificant rogue cultivators. They had offended the Beyond Heaven path, yet they still wanted to stay in the Grand Essence ruins. My wife and I have implicated Senior. Jing Weiran no longer regarded Ning Cheng as a cultivator in the same realm as him. Two late-stage eternal cultivators, who were much stronger than him, besieged Ning Cheng, yet Ning Cheng killed them in an instant. From this, it also showed that Ning Cheng's cultivation had long since surpassed his. Ning Cheng smiled, "It's not that I've implicated you. Since I'm in the Grand Essence ruins, this kind of thing would have happened sooner or later. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a day earlier or a day later. Anyway, I have something to ask you and your wife about." Ning Cheng didn't speak nonsense. If not for Peng Shan's honesty, he might have already killed Peng Shan. From what Peng Shan said, the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain probably wasn't a small sect. After he killed Peng Shan, the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain would definitely investigate. But now, he didn't have a feud with the Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain. Instead, he had a feud with the Beyond Heaven path because of Jing Weiran and his wife. Therefore, apart from forbearance, this kind of thing would have happened sooner or later. In the face of powerhouses that he couldn't resist, Ning Cheng might have endured it for a while and then come back when he grew stronger. But in the face of two eternal cultivators, Ning Cheng would never endure it. "Senior, please instruct me." Jing Weiran, who felt very guilty towards Ning Cheng, replied with even more respect. Ning Cheng knew that the Jing Weiran couple also wanted to leave as soon as possible. Therefore, he made a long story short. How strong is the Beyond Heaven path? Who was the strongest expert? What was his cultivation level? Do you have any special backing? Ning Cheng didn't ask these questions without a purpose. If the Beyond Heaven path was too powerful, then he wouldn't have to worry about it. Therefore, he decided to cancel the idea of going to the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Hall to hand over the task. The Grand Essence Quest Hall might have many good things. No matter how good something was, it was not as important as his life. If Beyond Heaven path's strength wasn't enough for him to escape, he would still do what he was supposed to do. Jing Weiran bowed and replied, "The Beyond Heaven path is far inferior to the Tao Confirming Alliance, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the Sword Mausoleum, and the God Thunder Alliance." It was a somewhat famous alliance in the Grand Essence ruins. The alliance master, Fei Er, was a Tao sculpting powerhouse. His most famous spirit technique was the limitless collapsing thunder. It was very powerful, and it was also known as the Grand Essence Little Spirit Thunder. Among Tao sculpting cultivators of the same rank, there were not many who could defeat Fei Er in a one-on-one fight. Deputy Alliance Master Ranhausen and Fei Er are sworn brothers and are also half-step Tao sculpting powerhouses. The Beyond Heaven path has more than 20 full-circle eternal cultivators, and even more eternal cultivators. As for the backing of the Beyond Heaven path, I don't know if they have any. Only one Tao sculpting cultivator. Ning Cheng felt a bit relieved. He didn't know if Hong Luan was a Tao sculpting cultivator or not. But even if Hong Luan wasn't a Tao sculpting cultivator, he shouldn't be too far off. With his current strength, even if he wasn't Fei Er's opponent, it should be a piece of cake for him to escape. As for Ranhausen, a half-step Tao sculpting cultivator, Ning Cheng directly ignored him. Ning Cheng, who originally wanted to escape, decided not to do so after learning about Fei Er's strength. Once he completely transformed his celestial essence into spirit essence, so what if he was a Tao sculpting cultivator? He came to the Grand Essence ruins to look for Yan Ji, but he hadn't found her yet. Moreover, the Grand Essence ruins was a place that helped cultivation a lot. There were treasures everywhere. Since he didn't care about points, why not exchange for more good things? As for the favor Peng Shan mentioned, Ning Cheng never intended to ask for it. In his opinion, after the transaction with Peng Shan, there was no such thing as a favor. If he didn't ask for anything from Peng Shan, it would have been a favor. "I got it. I'm leaving. You should also get ready to leave. Goodbye." After Ning Cheng finished, his figure flashed and he immediately left. Jing Weiran and his wife naturally understood the dangers of staying here. After Ningqing left, the two quickly took out their concealment masks and instantly left the place. When Ningqing returned, he brought out the starry sky wheel. The speed at which he returned was more than 10 times faster than when he entered the Grand Essence Ruins. The Grand Essence Ruins quest hall still had many people coming and going. Because of the enmity between him and the Beyond Heaven path, Ningqing had to be very careful after entering the quest hall. He didn't know if the news of what he did hadn't come back, or if his warning had worked. But after he entered the quest hall, no spiritual consciousness fell on him. Ningqing went straight to the material-related task handover area and found a window to sit down. A young female cultivator with a pair of crescent moon eyebrows greeted him. "Excuse me, what task do you want to hand over?" The female cultivator's voice was crisp and had a touch of affinity. Ningqing, who had been tense the entire time, felt an extremely comfortable feeling when he heard this soft and crisp voice. He immediately relaxed his mind. It seemed that he had been too careful. Even if Fey air from the heaven-seated path stopped him, he wouldn't feel afraid. Not to mention that fighting wasn't allowed within the scope of the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Even if he did fight, so what? He didn't need to be too afraid. As if feeling Ningqing's relaxed mood, the female cultivator smiled. Apparently, they had received special training to let the cultivators who came to hand over their tasks relax. "I want to ask which task is related to the law soil." Ningqing nodded and asked. When the female cultivator heard that Ningqing came to hand over the law soil task, the smile on her face grew even wider. Law soil is the 163rd material task. Are you here to hand over the law soil task? For her, the cultivators who came here to hand over their tasks would also earn her points. For every 10,000 points she received, she would earn 1 point. If she was lucky, she could earn a dozen points a day. If she met someone who handed over a task worth more than 1,000,000 points, her income would increase tenfold. Of course, she had never encountered such a thing even after working here for so many years. No one could hand over 1,000,000 points at once. Even if such a thing happened, it wouldn't be related to materials. Most of them were spirit techniques or top-grade Dao fruits. Moreover, law soil had a high number of points, which meant that she might even earn half or even a full point from Ningqing today. "Yes, I want to hand over the law soil." Ningqing took out a jade box and handed it over. The female cultivator took the jade box and carefully opened it. When she saw a fist-sized chunk of law soil in the jade box, she almost screamed out loud. However, she quickly controlled her excitement and reached out to close Ningqing's jade box. Then, she spoke to Ningqing with an even more polite tone, "I can't estimate your law soil points. Please wait a moment. I'll ask the deacon to come over." Ningqing could tell from her slightly trembling tone that she was afraid of changing to another window to exchange points. In fact, this female cultivator truly thought so. After the deacon came over to assess the law soil points, she would still get a commission. She naturally didn't want to lose this small income just because she couldn't assess the points. Ningqing smiled, "It doesn't matter, you can call." The female cultivator pressed a crystal ball next to her and made a few hand seals on it. In just a few breaths, a red-faced old man rushed to the female cultivator's side. "Who wants to hand over a fist-sized chunk of law soil? Where's the law soil?" The old man asked anxiously before he could even stand still. Law soil of this size was too scarce. But now that a piece of it had arrived, he naturally felt excited. The female cultivator quickly handed over the jade box before pointing to Ningqing and saying, "This Dao friend came to hand it over." Chapter 863. The red-faced old man gave a warm greeting to Ningqing, while simultaneously opening the jade box in his hands. "Good stuff." When the red-faced old man saw the law soil in the jade box, he couldn't help but exclaim. He wasn't the female cultivator who handed over the task. In the quest hall, he had seen too many pieces of law soil. He had even seen a lot of pieces several times bigger than the one Ningqing brought out. But he had never seen one with such clear laws. The clearer the law Dao charm of the law soil, the more valuable it was. The law soil that Ning Cheng brought out wasn't small, but it also had a clear law vein. The law aura of this kind of law soil could be easily absorbed by the Dao fruit tree and sold for a higher price. This Dao friend, your law soil has a very high grade. I'll give you 150,000 points and 150,000 spirit crystals. How about it? The red-faced old man looked at Ning Cheng eagerly. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile. I don't have any objections. Seeing Ning Cheng so easy to talk to, the red-faced old man felt happy and was just about to urge the excited female cultivator next to him to help Ning Cheng handle the points when he heard Ning Cheng continue, I have a few more pieces here. While speaking, Ning Cheng took out 4 more pieces of law soil. The 3 big pieces were the size of 2 fists, and even the small piece was almost the same size as the one Ning Cheng had taken out before. Even if the red-faced deacon had seen too much of the world, he still felt shocked by Ning Cheng's actions. The bigger the law soil, the more valuable it was. Similarly, the clearer the law vein, the more valuable it was. The pieces of law soil that Ning Cheng took out were not only big but also had a clear law vein. He excitedly grabbed the few jade boxes Ning Cheng took out, and the look in his eyes turned even more eager. As for the female cultivator next to him, her hands trembled slightly with excitement. She could see that if Ning Cheng took out all the law soil and traded it for points, the points would definitely exceed 1 million. For her, as long as she handed over a task with more than 1 million points, the commission she received would increase tenfold. In other words, as long as Ning Cheng handed over more than 1 million points, her commission wouldn't just be 100 points, but more than 1,000 points. More than 1,000 points was not a small amount for her. These points were more than enough for her to go to the Quest Hall's merchant house in exchange for many cultivation resources. The red-faced old man checked Ning Cheng's law soil several times before putting it all into the jade box. He then looked at Ning Cheng and said, a total of 5 pieces of law soil. I'll give you 5 million points, plus 5 million spirit crystals. After saying that, the red-faced old man looked at Ning Cheng eagerly. Even if Ning Cheng didn't use this law soil for quests and took it out for auction, everyone would fight for it. He wanted to ask Ning Cheng where he got his law soil. Fortunately, he knew that it was an extremely taboo topic. Therefore, he held back and didn't ask about it. Sure. Ning Cheng nodded in agreement without hesitation. He also knew that taking out 5 pieces of law soil at once would put him in the limelight. For the sake of strength, he had no choice but to do so. Moreover, Ning Cheng also knew that the law soil business was a one-shot business. After this one, it would never happen again. He didn't dare to continue to take out more law soil from the mysterious yellow bead. Not only did he worry about taking too much law soil from the mysterious yellow bead, but he also worried that someone would investigate him. If Ning Cheng was lucky enough to find several pieces of law soil at once, it would still be acceptable. But if he could find so much law soil every time, it wouldn't be something that could be explained by luck. Regardless of the reason, Ning Cheng decided not to take out any more law soil from the mysterious yellow bead for points. Hearing Ning Cheng's agreement, the red-faced old man finally felt relieved. The female cultivator felt even more happy. She tried to calm herself down and said to Ning Cheng, please take out the quest card. I will help you exchange for the quest points. Ning Cheng took out the black card and handed it to the female cultivator. When the female cultivator saw that Ning Cheng's quest card was just a black card, she immediately froze. A cultivator who wanted to exchange for 5 million points at once, yet he took out a black card. No one would believe it if she said it out loud. But with good professionalism, she quickly returned to normal. A soft smile appeared on her face as she helped Ning Cheng exchange for 5 million quest points. At the same time, she also gave Ning Cheng 5 million spirit crystals. Not only did she obtain more than 1 million spirit crystals, but she also obtained 5 million points. The first thing Ning Cheng wanted to do now was to go to the Quest Hall's merchant house to exchange for some cultivation resources. After that, he would find a place to go into seclusion and transform his celestial essence into spirit essence. Hey, Senior Apprentice Brother Ning, did you also come to hand in a quest? A surprised voice called out to Ning Cheng, who had just walked out of the quest hall. Ning Cheng quickly cupped his fists and said, so it's Junior Apprentice Sister Kong Ning. Yes, I just finished handing in my quest. Did Junior Apprentice Sister Kong Ning also come to hand in your quest? Ning Cheng recognized the female cultivator who called out to him. She was Kong Ning, whom he had met in the Defying Ice Mound. Kong Ning was a disciple of the River Luo sacred sect. She had invited Ning Cheng to join the River Luo sacred sect together, but Ning Cheng had refused. Ning Cheng didn't expect to meet her here. There was another man and a woman next to Kong Ning. The male cultivator looked very handsome, and the white cultivator robes he wore made him look even more extraordinary. Not only did this male cultivator look handsome, but he also had a powerful cultivation aura. Ning Cheng estimated that this male cultivator's cultivation wasn't any worse than Hong Luan's. The female cultivator wore a light cyan robe, had snow-white skin, and slender eyebrows. Her long hair was tied into a fairy-like bun, which added a touch of fairy-like charm to her. Kong Ning was definitely a beauty, but standing next to this female cultivator, she immediately paled in comparison. Of course, this was only the first impression of a bystander. In Ning Cheng's opinion, Kong Ning's appearance didn't lose out to this female cultivator. It's just that Kong Ning wore a gray robe and didn't dress up at all, which made her look like a far cry from this female cultivator. In Ning Cheng's opinion, this female cultivator's cultivation should be at the full circle eternal realm. However, Ning Cheng didn't like her appearance. He had a cold expression on his face, as if someone owed him money and didn't want to pay it back. That being said, when the man and woman stood together, they did look like a celestial couple. No, Senior Apprentice Brother Ing, Senior Apprentice Sister Yaotzen, and I went to participate in the Dao confirming exchange at the Quest Merchant House. By the way, I haven't introduced you yet. This is Senior Apprentice Brother Ing Yongxian from the 7-Star Sacred Shrine, one of the 3 sacred shrines. This is my Senior Apprentice Sister Shan Yaotzen. As Kong Ning spoke until here, she then introduced the 2 cultivators to the man and woman, Senior Apprentice Brother Ing, Senior Apprentice Sister Yaotzen, this is Senior Apprentice Brother Ning Cheng. He helped me in the Defying Ice Mound before. Ning Cheng was just about to step forward and greet them. After all, Shan Yaotzen and Ing Yongxian both had higher cultivation than him and came from Big Section's 3 sacred shrines. Just by listening to the name, one could tell that they weren't small. But Ning Cheng had just taken a step forward when he suddenly stopped. Ing Yongxian and Shan Yaotzen didn't even glance at him after hearing Kong Ning's introduction. Even if the other party was a Dao perfection expert, Ning Cheng wouldn't go near them. Seeing Ning Cheng stop and frown, Kong Ning looked embarrassed. Ning Cheng smiled and said to Kong Ning, Junior Apprentice Sister Kong Ning, how can I go to the Quest Merchant House's Dao confirming exchange? Kong Ning quickly asked, Senior Apprentice Brother Ning, do you want to go there too? Ning Cheng nodded, yeah, I just finished handing over the task and have some points on me. So I want to exchange them for some cultivation resources and then find a place to go into seclusion for a while. That's true, but you need a silver card to enter the Dao confirming exchange. Wait a minute. After Kong Ning finished, she turned to the 2 people next to her and said, Senior Apprentice Brother Ing, Senior Apprentice Sister Yaotzen, you both have silver cards. A silver card can take 1 person in. Why don't you take Senior Apprentice Brother Ning Cheng with you? Shan Yaotzen finally glanced at Ning Cheng with a cold gaze, but she didn't answer Kong Ning's words. Instead, she turned around and walked away. The male cultivator named Ing Yongxian, on seeing Shan Yaotzen leave, also chased after her. Kong Ning frowned slightly. After a while, she apologetically said to Ning Cheng, Senior Apprentice Brother Ning Cheng, I'm really sorry. My task card is a white card, and I can't take anyone in. Ning Cheng didn't mind it and said, it's okay. You can go. It doesn't matter if I go or not. I don't have many points anyway. Shan Yaotzen, who had walked a few meters away, heard Ning Qing say that he didn't have many points, and a trace of disdain appeared on her face. Did she even need to say such words? Even if she didn't say it, people would know that she didn't have many points. Ning Qing didn't pretend to be poor. He didn't have any concept of points, and he truly didn't know that one. 5 million points was a lot. After all, he used hundreds of millions of permanent essence pills for cultivation. Therefore, 5 million points wasn't a lot in his eyes. Kong Ning felt even more embarrassed and ashamed. If the Tao confirming exchange hadn't started yet, Kong Ning would have helped Ning Qing find a way. It's just that the exchange was about to start, and she couldn't do anything about it. This Tao confirming exchange was very important to her, and she had to attend it. Therefore, she could only say goodbye to Ning Qing in a hurry and prepare to compensate Ning Qing in other ways after coming out of the exchange. Just as Kong Ning caught up with Shan Yaotzen, Ning Qing heard Shan Yaotzen's low voice. Junior apprentice Sister Ning, you're a disciple of one of the 3 sacred sects, yet you call a cultivator who hasn't even reached the late-stage eternal realm, senior apprentice brother. If this matter spreads out, my River Luo sacred sect would lose a lot of face. Hearing this, Kong Ning frowned slightly. If it weren't for the Tao confirming resources, she would have already turned around and left. Thinking that everyone was from River Luo sacred sect, Kong Ning held back her anger and said, Senior apprentice brother Ning isn't an ordinary eternal cultivator. His strength is enough to make him a king in the eternal realm. What's more, I owe him a favor. Not waiting for Shan Yaotzen to say anything, Ing Yongxian chuckled and said, Forget it. Kong Ning has a kind heart. After all, the Grand Essence Ruins is open to everyone, and there are all kinds of people here. Some people have a way with words, and even I can't help but believe them sometimes. After hearing Ing Yongshuan's words, Kong Ning stopped talking. She felt that there was no need to continue explaining to these 2 people. After all, everyone had their own ideas. Ning Qing naturally didn't care about what these 2 people said to him. He just wanted to enter the Quest Hall's merchant house and participate in the Tao confirming exchange. Chapter 864. Pa. A huge palm slammed onto the jade tea table. This exquisite jade tea table was smashed into pieces by this slap. The person who smashed the coffee table was a malicious-looking blonde man with a high nose bridge. When others saw this man, they would first notice his palms. His arms were much longer than the average person's. Not only that, but his palms looked like a pair of large dustpans. You found out? Sitting opposite him was a man and a woman. The man had short hair and a short beard. He was burly and looked very young. The blonde man nodded and threw the crystal ball in his hand to the young male cultivator who asked. The young male cultivator took the crystal ball and swept his spiritual consciousness inside. A moment later, his expression turned ugly and he said coldly, I thought it was a sacred force that wanted to go against my beyond heaven path, but it turned out to be a brat that still reeks of his mother's milk. With that, the young male cultivator handed the crystal ball to the female cultivator next to him. Although Ning Qing had a head full of gray hair, the 2 of them were powerhouses, and could see at a glance that Ning Qing was not that old. The angry blonde man was Beyond Heaven Path's Union Master Fei Er, while the young-looking male cultivator was Sky-Seated Path's Deputy Sect Master Ranhausen. The last female cultivator to look at the crystal ball was Deacon Yuan Qianping of Beyond Heaven Path. Yuan Qianping was equivalent to the brains of Beyond Heaven Path. Almost all of Beyond Heaven Path's strategies had her shadow in them. Yuan Qianping once again brought out a tea table and placed the crystal ball on it. She then poured a cup of spiritual tea for Fei Er and Ranhausen before speaking up, looking at this person's strength, he should be at the full circle of the eternal realm. Moreover, he should be an eternal cultivator with outstanding strength. Since he had confirmed his identity as a rogue cultivator, things would be much easier. However, we have to find this person as soon as possible. We can't let this drag on. The reason why Fei Er was angry wasn't because Jing Wuya and Yu Lian of Beyond Heaven Path were killed, but because it was a rogue cultivator who killed them. If even a rogue cultivator could provoke Beyond Heaven Path, then not to mention developing in the starry skies, Beyond Heaven Path wouldn't even be able to stay in the Grand Essence ruins. Junior Sister Qianping, why do you say that we can't drag this on? The Grand Essence ruins was boundless, and even Tao Perfection powerhouses couldn't search every corner. If this person wants to hide, even if we issue a mission, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find him in a short time, Ranhausen said in a deep voice. Yuan Qianping pointed to the recording crystal ball. From this crystal ball, we can see that this person's strength is indeed formidable. Only a few sacred sons can suppress him with eternal realm cultivation. Moreover, the Grand Essence Great Meet is just around the corner. If the big sects of the Grand Essence domain learn of this person's strength, I'm afraid that they will do everything possible to absorb him into their sect. Before Yuan Qianping could finish her words, Fei Er and Ranhausen understood what was going on. The two of them nodded and said, "That's right, we need to get rid of this person as soon as possible." No matter how strong the Beyond Heaven path was, it could not be compared to those powerful sects with deep foundations. If this rogue cultivator really joined one of the big sects, then it would be very difficult for Beyond Heaven path to take revenge. Raphael frowned after saying this. Ranhausen's words weren't without reason. The Grand Essence ruins was a vast place. Where would they find a rogue cultivator who wanted to hide? Yuan Qianping spoke up with confidence, "Two elder brothers, you don't have to worry. I'm guessing that this rogue cultivator will most likely come out of the Grand Essence ruins. He might even appear in the Grand Essence ruins public square." Don't look at Ranhausen's youthful appearance. Just like Fei Er, he was an old demon who had lived for countless years. They hadn't been at the edge of the Grand Essence ruins for a day or two, and they had experienced countless things. As soon as Yuan Qianping said this, the two immediately thought of the key point, and their eyes lit up. Ranhausen laughed. Junior apprentice Sister Qianping is more attentive. Judging from the crystal ball, this person saved that couple. That couple would definitely hand over the law soil to this person. As long as he has the law soil, he might take the risk to come to the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Hall to hand over the task. He might even go to the Quest Hall's merchant house. Yuan Qianping nodded. That's just one of the reasons. Secondly, since he dared to attack people from my Beyond Heaven path, it shows that this person is bold and doesn't even put my Beyond Heaven path in his eyes. This kind of person has a lot of pride, so it makes sense for him to go to the Quest Hall to hand over the task. Yuan Qianping's guess wasn't completely correct, but she also guessed that Ning Cheng would come here to hand over the law soil task. She guessed one thing right. Since Ning Cheng dared to come out of the Grand Essence ruins, it meant that he didn't fear the Beyond Heaven path. Even if he wanted to hide, he would have to wait until he exchanged for a lot of cultivation resources before finding a place to go into seclusion. At this time, Ning Cheng stood at the entrance of the Quest Hall's merchant house. After repeated inquiries, he understood that he wouldn't be able to get in without help. Ning Cheng had already inquired about the start time of the Tao confirming exchange and found that there was less than half an hour left. Seeing many powerhouses enter the merchant house, Ning Cheng felt even more anxious. This kind of exchange would definitely have a lot of good things. Moreover, he had more than 1.5 million points, so it wouldn't be of much use for him to spend them on the black floor of the merchant house. Two more beautiful female cultivators walked over. Ning Cheng took a look at these two and understood that they must have come to participate in the Tao confirming exchange. At this time, Ning Cheng couldn't care about anything else. He took the initiative to walk in front of the two and cupped his fists. "Two senior apprentice sisters, please." "What's the matter?" The tall female cultivator glanced at Ning Cheng with a cold gaze and spoke with an equally cold tone. Ning Cheng quickly spoke up. "Two senior apprentice sisters, I don't have a silver card, but I really want to participate in the Tao confirming exchange. I want to ask two senior apprentice sisters to take me in. I'm willing to pay some of my points." Before Ning Cheng could finish speaking, the tall female cultivator's imposing aura pressed down on Ning Cheng. At the same time, she coldly shouted, "Get lost." Ning Cheng's expression turned ugly. It was fine if they didn't agree, but why were these people so arrogant? What's so great about a silver card? Even if I spend all my points, I'll still have a silver card. Hee hee, you really dare to think that you want a woman from the 9 revolving sacred Tao pond to take you into the exchange. A gloating voice arrived. Ning Qing turned around and found that it was a female cultivator. It's just that this female cultivator wasn't beautiful at all. She had a chubby face, and when she smiled, her eyes squeezed into slits. This face always gave Ning Qing a familiar feeling. This senior apprentice sister, is the 9 revolving sacred Tao pond very arrogant? Ning Qing asked with cupped fists. The fat female cultivator laughed again. This 9 revolving sacred Tao pond is one of the Grand Essence's 3 sacred sections. Don't you think they're arrogant? Did you see that woman who told you to get lost? She's called Shuishuang, and the one next to her is called Na Yuanxiang. Well, in your words, they all think they're arrogant. In my opinion, they're just a bit prettier than others. But they all act like a potty, with their eyes and noses facing the sky. Ning Qing could still hear some sourness in this fat female cultivator's words. Most likely, it was because she couldn't eat the grapes. Don't worry, if they don't take you in, I'll take you in. Isn't it just a bullshit silver card? This old lady also has one. The fat female cultivator didn't have the slightest hint of a ladylike tone. She kept talking about potty, bullshit, and this old lady. Ning Qing didn't care about what this female cultivator was talking about. When he heard that this female cultivator wanted to take him in, he quickly cupped his fists and thanked her. Many thanks, senior apprentice sister, for helping me. The fat female cultivator showed a sly smile. I'm not helping you for nothing. I just heard you say that you want to give me points. How many points do you have? Give me half, and I'll take you in. Half? Ning Qing frowned. He only had one. 55 million points in total. If he gave her half, what could he do with more than 700,000 points? Humph, what's wrong? You don't want to? Forget it then. I, Peng Ruimei, am not a person who takes points from others. Goodbye. The fat female cultivator turned around and left. Ning Qing suddenly remembered something and called out, do you know Peng Shan? Where is he now? Hey, do you know my younger brother? Peng Ruimei stopped and looked at Ning Qing in doubt. Ning Qing took out a jade card and said, Peng Shan gave it to me. My name is Ning Qing, and I helped him in the past. If you go back and ask your younger brother, he will definitely tell you. Oh, so you're Ning Qing. Why didn't you say so earlier? Come on, come with me. I don't need you to pay a single point. I also want to thank you for helping my younger brother find such a big piece of lost soil. Peng Ruimei's face changed quickly. After hearing that Ning Qing was her younger brother Peng Shan's friend, she immediately turned enthusiastic. Many thanks, senior apprentice sister Peng. Ning Qing felt overjoyed and thanked her again. Peng Ruimei waved her hand. I really want to thank you for Peng Shan's matter. You should know that beautiful women nowadays think that their flesh is precious. Bah, in fact, it's all the same even if you take off your clothes. But Peng Shan is such a disappointment. He likes that woman to death. Yet, that woman insisted on giving him a piece of lost soil as a betrothal gift. If it were me, I would have kicked him a long time ago. He actually wants to go to the Grand Essence ruins to find lost soil. Ning Qing was speechless to the extreme. This elder sister of Peng Shan really spoke without thinking, and was very bold. Fortunately, Ning Qing didn't need to answer. The two had already arrived at the place where the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Merchant House held the trade fair. After entering the trade fair's main hall, Ning Qing sighed in his heart. This place truly had many powerhouses. The Dao charm aura lingered in the air, and every corner contained the aura of powerhouses. The hall was spacious, and many cultivators came in. Ning Qing glanced around and found that there were no less than 1,000 people. The entire trade fair's main hall was shaped like a pot, with a round table and a huge crystal ball screen at the bottom. It looked similar to the auction stage used in auctions. The cultivators participating in the trade fair sat around the hall. Although Peng Ruimei was tough, she didn't speak loudly after entering the trading hall. Instead, she gestured for Ning Cheng to find a seat and sit down. "Ha, senior apprentice brother Ning, you also came in?" Kong Ning's surprised voice rang out beside Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng also saw Kong Ning, Shan Yaozhen, and Ning Yongxian. He smiled and nodded. "Yeah, my friend helped me." Peng Ruimei also saw Kong Ning and the other two and frowned slightly before asking, "Are these three your friends?" Ning Cheng quickly explained, "No, only junior apprentice sister Kong Ning is my friend. I don't know the others." Shan Yaozhen and Ning Yongxian heard Ning Cheng's words and gave a cold snort but didn't speak. Peng Ruimei nodded, "That's right. You have to be careful when making friends. You can't make friends with just anyone. Don't learn from that disappointing Peng Shan. He's too spineless." Chapter 865. Ning Cheng didn't pay attention to Peng Ruimei's words at all. Although he didn't sweep out with his spiritual consciousness, he could clearly feel that there were many people in this hall far stronger than him. A few of them even had strength comparable to the red-haired powerhouse he met in the Grand Essence Sea. Although there were many people in the hall, no one made any noise. Even friends who knew each other would try to use voice transmissions or whisper to each other. After another half an incense stick worth of time, a middle-aged man dressed like a Confucian scholar walked to the round table in the middle of the trading hall and cupped his fists before speaking. "Thank you, Dao friends, for coming to the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Merchant House's Dao Confirming Exchange. Our Dao Confirming Exchange is held every 3 years, and a lot of treasures are traded during it. The Dao Confirming Exchange has also created countless powerhouses. We hope that all the fellow Taoists sitting here today will be able to leave with a satisfied heart and obtain what they want. The Dao Confirming Exchange will still follow the old rules. The merchant house will take 1% of the transaction value of both parties. 1% of the transaction value wasn't much. As someone who came from Earth, Ning Cheng naturally understood that the main purpose of this merchant house wasn't to earn points but to build popularity. To enter this exchange, one must have a silver card, and to get a silver card, one must spend a lot of points. Even if the merchant house didn't take a single point, the more such exchange fairs were held, the better it would be for the merchant house. Everyone has a teleportation station and a point trading slot in front of their seats. I believe that Dao friends already know how to trade, so I won't say much about it. The order of trading starts from the first seat. After the middle-aged scholar finished speaking, he cupped his fists and walked down before sitting down on one of the seats. Ning Cheng had already studied the square table in front of his seat. There was a small teleportation station on the square table, which presumably was the place to transfer items and spirit crystals. There was also a groove on the edge of the teleportation station, which could be used to place one's own task card. Then, one could use an array formation to exchange points with the traders in the distance. In addition, there was also a quotation screen, which allowed one to quote the price of the item and the item they wanted to trade. One could say that this trading platform was a very advanced thing, purely from the perspective of the trading platform. Moreover, this kind of array formation was many times more advanced than the technology used in the world of science and technology. At least, Ning Cheng hadn't seen any technology that could control the laws of space. If he could control the laws of space, there wouldn't be a need for logistics. The item I want to trade is a cultivation technique, the Divine Sifting Pentacauldron. You only need points or any law crystals, nothing else is accepted. A deep and resounding voice resounded in the hall. Ning Cheng saw that one of the seats was surrounded by a golden halo, and behind this seat was the number 1. Sitting in the first seat was a tall male cultivator. On the table in front of him was a book made of some unknown material. The book was locked by a restriction and couldn't be opened. It should be the God-sifting pentacauldron that he was talking about. Ning Cheng looked at the number on his desk. It was number 664, and the color was gray. He looked at the armchair behind him and understood that when he took out the item to trade, the armchair behind him would also turn golden. Ning Cheng had a lot of law crystals, more than 100 of which contained the laws of space. However, he had no interest in the divine sifting pentacauldron, so he naturally wouldn't bid. Although Ning Qing did not bid, there were still a lot of people who bid. Ning Qing saw the prices constantly refreshing on the bidding screen. At the same time, he also saw many seats in the exchange hall flashing with silver lights. Soon Ning Qing found out the pattern. The silver light on the seat flashed and disappeared. It was because the price of the cultivator in that seat was pushed down by a higher price, causing a new silver light to appear on the seat with the highest price. The price changed quickly, and in just a short time, the spirit-sifting pentacauldron cultivation technique increased to more than 30,000 points. Finally, it stopped at 43,000 points. After reaching this point, no one else bid. The seat with the silver light flashing was number 411, a middle-aged female cultivator. From the looks of it, she was the one who bid 43,000 points. Ning Cheng's heart immediately stirred up. He wasn't a fool. The cultivator who took out the spirit-sifting pentacauldron was obviously a powerhouse who had successfully reached Tao-confirming realm. Therefore, the things taken out by such a person naturally wouldn't be too bad, which could be seen from the competitive scene. Yet, such a good thing could be bought with just over 40,000 points. From the looks of it, his 1.5 million points were already a lot. After the price stopped changing, a crisp female cultivator's voice emerged. The highest price on the scene is 43,000 points for number 411. Would you like to trade? This exchange meeting was different from auctions. Once the highest price was announced, it depended on the cultivator who owned the item. If the cultivator who owned the item felt that the price was too low, he could choose not to trade. Deal. After the cultivator with the spirit-sifting pentacauldron finished speaking, he put the spirit-sifting pentacauldron cultivation technique into the teleportation array and placed his silver card in the groove in front of the table. As the spirit-sifting pentacauldron teleported away, the 43,000 points were transferred to the cultivator's silver card. Ning Qing sighed in his heart. This method of trading was indeed convenient and fast. After the first transaction was completed, the seat with number 3 lit up. Ning Qing looked at it and found that no one was sitting in the second seat. Sitting in the third seat was a female cultivator with white hair. After her seat lit up, she raised a jade box and said, "I want to trade a Dao fruit containing the laws of wood, drifting cotton fruit. I only want points." Dao fruits were divided into many types. Dao fruits containing the laws of wood mainly helped cultivators comprehend the laws of wood. This kind of law was of great use to cultivators comprehending the laws of wood's spirit techniques, alchemists, and cultivators cultivating divine grasses. Of course, it didn't have much of an effect on Dao-confirming fruits. Only a few cultivators could use Dao fruits to confirm their Dao. But such cultivators were few and far between. A true Dao-confirming Dao fruit had an essential difference from an elemental Dao fruit. A Dao-confirming Dao fruit didn't just contain a law attribute, but also a kind of nomological Dao charm. Even if the drifting cotton fruit was a low-grade Dao fruit, it was still in high demand. As soon as this drifting cotton fruit came out, someone immediately snatched it up and quickly bought it for a high price of 92,000 points. From this, one could see that as long as it was related to a Dao fruit, the price would rise sharply. This made Ning Qing very envious. No wonder law soil was so expensive. A piece of law soil could make a Dao fruit tree grow a bunch of Dao fruits. How many points could one sell it for? Following that, the people from seats 4 to 20 all took out expensive things. If it wasn't top-grade materials, it was top-grade weapons, cultivation methods, and other treasures. Even Ning Qing fancied 7 or 8 things, but Ning Qing didn't sell any of them. What he wanted to sell was something he needed right now, not something he could buy or not buy. Finally, it was the turn of seat 26. A pale-faced, thin man sat on this seat. He raised a jade box and said, "I also want to trade a Dao fruit, falling scar fruit." As soon as the 3 words falling scar fruit came out, it immediately caused a small stir. Falling scar fruit was a true Dao-confirming Dao fruit. Among the cultivators who came here today, more than 20% of them came here for the Dao-confirming Dao fruit. Ning Qing also wanted this Dao fruit, but he knew that now wasn't the right time. With so many people here wanting the falling scar fruit, if he bought it, it would definitely attract attention. Maybe after this exchange meeting, someone might even track him down and kill him. He had already offended the Beyond Heaven path, so it wasn't a wise move to buy the falling scar fruit, which he didn't need urgently. Therefore, he had to use his points where it mattered most. That is, where he could improve his strength immediately. As soon as the falling scar fruit came out, the competition immediately turned white-hot. The price quickly rose to 360,000 points, and it still continued to rise. Although they were both Dao fruits, the drifting cotton fruit couldn't compare to the falling scar fruit at all. Ning Qing saw Kong Ning with a worried look on her face. Moreover, Ning Qing also saw her bid, which was 330,000 points. Her bid quickly fell, and the price of the falling scar fruit rose to 360,000 points. Kong Ning's face turned pale when she saw the points. The price of the falling scar fruit paused at 360,000 points for a while before Kong Ning quoted a new price, 363,000 points. When Ning Qing saw the price and Kong Ning's expression, he understood that Kong Ning couldn't buy this Dao fruit with the points she had. Sure enough, in just a moment, the price of the falling scar fruit rose to 390,000 points. Kong Ning hesitantly looked at her senior apprentice sister Shan Yaozhen, who came with her. However, Shan Yaozhen didn't seem to notice her. Instead, she kept staring at the bidding screen as if there were flowers on it. Ying Yongxian, who sat not far away, also didn't seem to notice Kong Ning's pleading gaze and also looked at the bidding screen. Ning Qing felt a little speechless. Since they were fellow apprentice sisters, what was wrong with helping them? Even if they didn't want to help, they shouldn't have pretended not to know about it. Why not just say that they didn't have enough points? After Kong Ning saw the expressions of the two people, she struggled for a while before finally retracting her gaze. But she obviously didn't want to give up on the falling scar fruit and even looked at Ning Qing. To be honest, Ning Qing didn't feel that the friendship between him and Kong Ning had reached the point where she could lend her points. Kong Ning must have also realized that the relationship between her and Ning Qing hadn't reached the point where she could lend her points, especially at this kind of trade fair. Even so, Kong Ning still looked at Ning Qing, which showed how much she wanted to obtain this falling scar fruit. Ning Qing smiled at Kong Ning and sent her a voice transmission, "I still have some points. Junior apprentice sister Kong Ning, I can lend you the points you owe. If I don't have enough points, I'll remind you halfway." Since Kong Ning used this kind of pleading gaze, Ning Qing naturally wouldn't pretend not to know about it like her senior apprentice sister. Even if she didn't want to lend, he wouldn't say anything. Ning Qing really couldn't play dead. As long as it didn't exceed 100,000 points, Ning Qing decided to help Kong Ning. If it was too much, he couldn't do anything about it. He came here to improve his strength, so he couldn't lend out too many points. Chapter 866. If not for her desire for this Dao fruit, Kong Ning would never have borrowed points from Ning Qing. She had been stuck at the full circle of the Eternal Realm for many years. As long as she had this little bit of opportunity, she was sure that she could successfully sculpt her Dao. At the very least, he could step into the ranks of half-step Dao sculpting. Kong Ning knew very well why Shan Yaozhen didn't lend her points. Not only because of the points, but also because their cultivation levels were similar. Shan Yaozhen already had a Dao fruit and was about to advance to the Dao sculpting realm. This time, she came here to look for treasures to stabilize her Dao sculpting realm. The two of them were competitors, so Shan Yaozhen naturally hoped that she would condense her Dao sculpting void later. Since Ying Yongxian was pursuing Shan Yaozhen, he definitely wouldn't risk Shan Yaozhen's dissatisfaction by lending her points. Now that Ning Qing agreed to lend her some points, Kong Ning felt happy. She just wanted to ask Ning Qing for help, but she didn't expect that Ning Qing would really be willing. To her, even if she owed him a favor and had to be thick-skinned, she did not want to miss this opportunity. In just a short time, the price of the falling scar fruit had already reached 410,000 points. Kong Ning hesitated before bidding 415,000 points, however, the price of the falling scar fruit quickly rose to 420,000 points. Shan Yaozen glanced at Kong Ning with some doubts. She knew that Kong Ning definitely had less than 400,000 points. In a Dao-confirming exchange like this, one simply couldn't bear the consequences of carelessly quoting a price. Ning Cheng also shook his head. He felt that Kong Ning's bid did not have any momentum, which would most likely cost her more points. Only by reporting a score that made others feel that you were determined would you be able to reduce some unnecessary competition. Kong Ning also seemed to understand her shortcomings. After the price reached 420,000 points, she didn't hesitate to bid 430,000 points. In fact, although the falling scar fruit was a Dao-confirming Dao fruit, it wasn't the top-grade Dao-confirming Dao fruit. As such, the price of 400,000 points was the highest it could reach. Therefore, after 400,000 points, no one increased the bid by much. This time, Kong Ning added 10,000 points at once, showing her determination. The rising price immediately stopped at 430,000 points. After the organizer announced that Kong Ning's price was valid, Kong Ning turned her nervous gaze towards Ning Cheng. In case Ning Cheng could not come up with the points, then she would truly be finished. Ning Cheng smiled and reached out to Kong Ning. Junior apprentice sister Kong Ning, give me your quest card. Kong Ning handed over the quest card in her hand to Ning Cheng without hesitation. It was a white card, and Ning Cheng saw that Kong Ning's quest card had 371,000 points on it. He took out his quest card and transferred 70,000 points over. With more than 440,000 points, Kong Ning could purchase this falling scar fruit. It was not a problem to pay 1% of the extra points to the merchant house. When Kong Ning saw the 441,000 points on her quest card, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Giving a grateful smile to Ning Cheng, he then proceeded to carry out the transaction with the cultivator with seat number 26. Shan Yaozen frowned slightly. She didn't expect that an ant-like rogue cultivator like Ning Cheng would lend tens of thousands of points to Kong Ning. This made her very unhappy. Between her and Kong Ning, whoever reached Dao confirming first would be able to enter the Spirit Techniques Pavilion first. River Luo Saint sect had a very small number of extremely powerful divine arts, but they were only taught to one disciple every 10,000 years. The spirit technique she fancied, Star Mark, happened to be a spirit technique that could only be passed on to one disciple every 10,000 years. Once Kong Ning successfully reached Dao sculpting first, she would lose this opportunity. She couldn't afford to wait for 10,000 years. Thinking of this, she even started to have murderous intent towards Ning Cheng. An ant could ruin her plans. In order to please Kong Ning, this ant probably took out all of his points. Even if he tried to please Kong Ning, with his identity, he couldn't even lick Kong Ning's toenails. How could an inner sect expert of River Luo Saint sect let an ant pursue her? While Shan Yaozen was still thinking about her own thoughts, the cultivator in seat 27 had already reported the item he wanted to sell. The thing I want to trade is a piece of phantom wind pattern. I believe that many Dao friends already know what phantom wind pattern is. Sure enough, after the cultivator reported the item, it immediately caused some surprise discussions. It seemed that phantom wind patterns were rare. Phantom wind patterns can only condense in a wind-attributed law space, and the probability of condensing them is very small. Perhaps this thing is useless to most people, but it's the most important treasure for flight-type winged weapons. Phantom wind patterns can help a flight-type weapon evolve by a level after undergoing nirvana. This kind of thing can only be found by chance. Even if you don't have a flight-type weapon today, what about in the future? The cultivator in seat 27 had a good mouth. Even if he didn't encourage it, Ning Cheng immediately decided to buy it when he heard that it could help a flight-type weapon evolve by a level after undergoing nirvana. After the twin wings of the heavenly clouds underwent nirvana using the wind thunder apricot tree's branch, it seemed to have reached its limit and could no longer increase its speed, which made Ning Cheng a little disappointed. As his cultivation improved, the twin wings of the heavenly clouds would eventually become useless. Now that he had a treasure to evolve it, how could he let it go? The phantom wind pattern wasn't as useless to most people as the cultivator in seat 27 said. As soon as this thing came out, the price immediately soared to 60,000 points, and it was still rising rapidly. Ning Cheng also saw Shan Yaozhen bidding, which showed that this woman also had a wing-type weapon. Ning Cheng didn't rush to bid. After the price of the phantom wind pattern reached 90,000 points, the price finally stabilized. Ning Cheng then directly quoted a price of 100,000 points. Except for a few people, most of the cultivators here didn't know Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng bid 100,000 points, and not many people cared about it. However, Shan Yaozhen knew about Ning Cheng's background. Ning Cheng was a rogue cultivator, and a rogue cultivator in the Eternal Realm. So where did he get so many points? Were points that easy to obtain? Seeing Shan Yaozhen frown, Ying Yongxian gritted his teeth and whispered, "Junior apprentice Sister Yaozhen, you can continue to increase the price. If you don't have enough points, I have more." Shan Yaozhen shook her head and sent a sound transmission, "Senior apprentice Brother Ying, let's talk about it later." Ying Yongxian naturally didn't mind gaining Shan Yaozhen's goodwill and not having to borrow points. Ning Cheng felt satisfied when he saw that no one increased the price for the 100,000 points. He didn't care about the points at all, as long as he could obtain the phantom wind pattern. Once his twin wings of the heavenly clouds evolved by a level, it would increase his chances of survival. "Senior apprentice Brother Ning, do you also want the phantom wind pattern?" Just when Ning Cheng was about to announce the start of the trade, he heard a woman's voice. Moreover, this voice didn't come from Kong Ning. Ning Cheng had just found Shan Yaozhen's voice transmission when he heard another voice transmission, "Senior apprentice Brother Ning, I'm Shan Yaozhen, Kong Ning's senior apprentice sister." Shan Yaozhen sent him a voice transmission. What kind of rhythm was this? He had nothing to do with this woman. This woman didn't even want to bring him into the venue, so why would she send him a voice transmission? No matter what this woman thought, Ning Cheng had no intention of paying attention to this woman. He didn't even bother to reply to the voice transmission. "What does it have to do with you whether I want the phantom wind pattern or not?" With senior apprentice Brother Ning's talent, it would be a waste not to join the 3 sacred sections. My River Luo sacred sect is currently absorbing talents from all over the world. Let's not talk about it now. Senior apprentice Brother Ning, your trade has already started. You don't have to answer me now. Let's meet at the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant after the trade fair. Ning Cheng's trade had indeed started, but no one bid higher than 100,000 points. After Ning Cheng's trade began, Shan Yaozhen also ended her voice transmission in a hurry. Ning Cheng shook his head speechlessly. Was the River Luo sacred sect that powerful? He never intended to go to any sacred sect. If he wanted to go, he would have already promised Kong Ning. Why did this woman feel so good about herself? Whether the trade started or not, Ning Cheng didn't intend to answer Shan Yaozhen's words. Seeing Ning Cheng lend points to Kong Ning, and then spend 100,000 points to buy something, even Peng Ruimei, who sat next to Ning Cheng, couldn't help but speak up. "Ning Cheng, are you an inner sect disciple of a big sect? Why do I feel like you're richer than me?" Ning Cheng smiled, "I'm just a rogue cultivator." Peng Ruimei pursed her lips. "You're a rogue cultivator? It would be strange if I believed you." As the trade continued, Ning Cheng didn't make any more moves. He thought that Shan Yaozhen would continue to send him a voice transmission to ask for his phantom wind pattern. But he didn't expect that Shan Yaozhen wouldn't send him another voice transmission. At this time, the trade reached seat number 76. A black-robed old man sat on seat 76 with a mask on his face, making it impossible for people to see his appearance. "What I want to trade is a cultivation method." The black-robed old man's voice was low and slightly hoarse, as if someone had cut his throat a few times with a knife. When Ning Cheng heard that the other party wanted to trade a cultivation method, he immediately lost interest. He had the mysterious yellow formless and had no interest in cultivation methods. Although the cultivation method is somewhat incomplete, it is a top-grade spiritual consciousness spirit technique cultivation method. As soon as the black-robed old man spoke about the spiritual consciousness spirit technique cultivation method, the scene immediately turned lively again. Even Ning Cheng couldn't help but feel spirited. What he wanted most was to construct his spiritual consciousness into a spirit technique. His starry sky sea of consciousness was very powerful, and his spiritual consciousness also far surpassed others in the same realm. It would be a pity if he didn't make use of it. Unfortunately, even with the mysterious yellow formless, he hadn't made much progress in his spiritual consciousness spirit technique. At most, he could only release his spiritual consciousness to break through some restrictions that shielded spiritual consciousness and draw out a few spiritual consciousness thorns or spiritual consciousness blades. These things could help him a little against enemies when his cultivation was still low. As his cultivation improved, the strength of his opponents also grew stronger. As such low-level spiritual consciousness attacks no longer had much use. Constructing a spiritual consciousness spirit technique was not something that could be achieved with just a powerful sea of consciousness. It not only required countless years of experience, but it also required a monstrous genius brain. Ning Cheng believed that his brain was not as stupid as anyone else's and even far surpassed the average person's brain. Unfortunately, what he lacked the most was the countless years of experience. Experience was not something that could be replaced by anything, one could only explore it on their own. This kind of thing could only be accumulated over time. It was something that could only be understood and could not be expressed in words. Now that he saw a spiritual consciousness cultivation method in this place, even if it was an incomplete spiritual consciousness cultivation method, Ning Cheng did not want to miss it. The enthusiasm of the trading scene made Ning Cheng ready to make a big move. He knew that he was not the only one who desperately wanted a spiritual consciousness spirit technique, but Ning Cheng did not want to give up. Chapter 867. However, the black-robed old man's next words immediately made many cultivators who wanted to buy a spiritual consciousness cultivation method feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. I won't say the name of this cultivation method, but I won't sell it for less than 600,000 points. Spending 600,000 points to buy an incomplete cultivation technique of unknown grade was a little too risky. How many years would it take to accumulate 600,000 points? Kong Ning had saved up so many points to buy a Dao fruit, yet she still had to ask Ning Cheng to borrow it. From this, it could be seen that 600,000 points was all the savings for most people. This price doesn't even mention the name of the cultivation method. Who would want it? That's right. At least tell everyone the name of the cultivation method, right? All kinds of discussions broke out. The black-robed old man also felt that it would be inappropriate if he didn't mention the name of the cultivation method. The reason why he didn't mention the name of the cultivation method was that he was afraid that others wouldn't dare to buy it after hearing the name. Moreover, he was afraid that this cultivation method would cause a big commotion. He just wanted to collect enough points to buy the things he needed. He didn't want to cause too much trouble at all. But now that he didn't say the name, it seemed that no one would buy it. If he couldn't sell this spiritual consciousness cultivation method, he wouldn't have a chance to get the things he needed. Thinking of this, the black-robed old man spoke up again. In that case, I'll say the name of this cultivation method. This time, he still couldn't say the name of this spiritual consciousness cultivation method. He had only spoken half of his words when someone bid on the bidding screen. 600,000 points appeared on the bidding screen, making it extremely conspicuous. The black-robed old man sighed and stopped what he wanted to say. Someone stopped him from saying the name of the cultivation method. Apparently, this person didn't want the name of this cultivation method to be known by everyone. The cultivators who wanted to know the name of this mysterious spiritual consciousness spirit technique felt very disappointed. Someone also offered 600,000 points for this nameless broken divine sense divine ability cultivation method. Ning Cheng also felt a little puzzled. In fact, he was just about to bid, but he didn't expect someone to bid before him. The one who bid was seat 129, which was occupied by a man with sparse hair and a pale face. Ning Cheng could tell at a glance that this person's cultivation was much higher than that of the ninth prince. Moreover, the Dao charm flowing around his body gave off a powerful aura. This spiritual consciousness cultivation method was something that he had taken a fancy to, so even if this person's cultivation was even more formidable, Ning Cheng did not intend to let it go. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he missed it, it would never come again. He didn't hesitate to bid 610,000 points. Many people recognized the cultivator with the pale face and sparse hair. He was a genuine Dao sculpting expert. Such a powerhouse bidding 600,000 points to buy a broken spiritual consciousness cultivation method did not cause much surprise. But Ning Cheng was different. Ning Cheng looked very young, and his cultivation was only at the middle stage eternal realm. For such a cultivator to bid 610,000 was too outrageous. Since when did points become so easy to earn? Even an eternal ant could casually take out over 600,000 points. People who didn't know Ning Cheng only felt that Ning Cheng's approach was a bit abrupt, but Kong Ning, who knew Ning Cheng's roots, felt even more confused. Ning Cheng lent her 70,000 points, and then spent another 100,000 points to purchase the Phantom Wind Trace. But now he wanted to bid 610,000 points. Didn't this mean that Ning Cheng had no less than 800,000 points? But she also knew that Ning Cheng was a newcomer to the Grand Essence Ruins. Moreover, he hadn't been in the Grand Essence Ruins for more than 3 years. How could such a newcomer have so many points? Shan Yaotzen's eyes lit up, but she first glanced at Kong Ning. She gave a cold snort in her heart. Kong Ning truly had some tricks up her sleeve. No wonder she treated this rogue cultivator with such politeness. It turned out that this rogue cultivator was this rich. Moreover, Kong Ning's tricks and schemes were much stronger than hers. Just by looking at how this rogue cultivator lent Kong Ning points without hesitation, she understood that Kong Ning had played with this rogue cultivator in the palm of her hand. Now that she knew that this rogue cultivator was a sheep, don't blame her, Shan Yaotzen, for sticking her foot in. Ing Yongxian frowned even more. No matter how he looked at it, Ning Cheng didn't look like a rich cultivator. How could he have so many points? If Ning Cheng was really this rich, how could he not even have the qualifications to come in? Yishuang, this ant who wants to talk to us is so rich. In a place not far from Ning Cheng, 2 extremely beautiful female cultivators sat. They were none other than the 9 revolving sacred Dao pawns Shi Yishuang and Na Yuanxiang. Na Yuanxiang, who was slightly shorter, glanced at Ning Cheng and spoke in a low voice. The tall Shi Yishuang frowned slightly and spoke after a while. This person is probably an inner sect disciple of a big sect. Just because he has a few points, he shamelessly swaggers around. After saying that, she glanced disdainfully at Kong Ning, who wasn't far from Ning Cheng, and Shan Yaotzen, who was a little further away. As for Peng Ruimei, who sat closest to Ning Cheng, she completely ignored her because of her ugly appearance. Ning Cheng, how many points do you have? Peng Ruimei didn't know that she was being ignored by others. She couldn't help but ask in a low voice. I don't have many points. More than half of them are gone. Ning Cheng spoke the truth. Peng Ruimei snorted. More than half of them were gone, which meant that this fellow had at least 1,000,000 points. How did he get so many points? The green-faced, thin-haired male cultivator apparently didn't expect that someone would bid against him. Moreover, the one who bid against him was an ant with eternal cultivation. His spiritual consciousness swept over Ning Cheng with a cold gaze, and his imposing aura warned Ning Cheng. Then, he once again quoted 640,000 points. In this kind of trade fair, even if the green-faced cultivator didn't like Ning Cheng, he could only give a quick warning. If he dared to oppress Ning Cheng again, it wouldn't be a trivial matter. The green-faced male cultivator added 30,000 points at once, bringing the total to 640,000 points. After this price came out, the people in the trading venue didn't pay attention to the green-faced male cultivator. Instead, their gazes fell on Ning Cheng. Everyone wanted to know if this rich man, who had suddenly appeared, would continue to increase the price. If he continued to increase the price, how much would he increase it? Even if he wanted to show off, Ning Cheng would still increase the price. The spiritual consciousness cultivation method was closely related to his future strength. How could he shrink back? Ning Cheng also understood his weakness. He only had 1.5 million points. Compared to those old monsters who had lived in the Grand Essence ruins for countless years, he was still far behind. He couldn't compete with the other party in terms of points. Otherwise, even if he obtained this cultivation method, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. What's more, he still hadn't completed his main purpose of coming here today. His main purpose was to transform celestial essence into spirit essence. Ning Qing could also use spirit crystals to transform it, but he also wanted to see if there was anything better. In addition, he also wanted to buy a suitable long spear weapon. Only by taking out something that could tempt this black-robed cultivator. Thinking of this, Ning Qing once again quoted a new price, 650,000 points, plus 5 egg-sized time stones. Ning Qing chose time stones over space crystals because he had a wrong understanding of the value of space crystals. He believed that for cultivators who hadn't touched the laws of space, time stones were far less valuable than space crystals. However, for cultivators who had come into contact with the laws of space, spatial crystals were dispensable. Moreover, there were only a few cultivators who could touch the laws of time. Therefore, the value of time stones, which could help people touch the laws of time, would definitely be higher. The black-robed old man was a cultivator who had touched the laws of space. Therefore, for this black-robed old man, time stones should be more valuable. In fact, it was just an illusion of Ning Cheng's. In any case, the value of space crystals was the same as that of time crystals. Maybe time crystals were far more valuable than space crystals, but time stones, which were far less valuable than time crystals, couldn't compare to space crystals. There were too many people who could use space to fight against enemies, but how many of them could truly comprehend the laws of space? Using spatial collapse, compression, and stretching to fight against enemies didn't mean that one could control the laws of space. However, space crystals contained a relatively clear understanding of the laws of space. How could the value of such things be lower than time stones, which only contained a few fragments of the laws of time? Even if one touched the laws of space, the value of space crystals would still be unparalleled. Whether it was a deeper understanding of the laws of space, cultivating a space-related spirit technique, arranging array formations, or crafting space-type weapons, the value of such things couldn't be compared to time stones. Although Ning Cheng had wrongly overestimated the value of time stones, the 5 time stones he took out were equally valuable. As soon as Ning Cheng's price came out, discussions broke out. Time stones, these things contain fragments of the laws of time. I heard that the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor had the strongest control over the laws of time. Did this person find the remains of the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor? Unfortunately, these are not laws of time crystals. Although they contain vague fragments of the laws of time, their value is still limited. All kinds of discussions broke out, and Ning Cheng even heard someone mention the name of the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor. He felt secretly surprised. Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor truly far surpassed a fake heavenly emperor like Chuan Xinluo. Not waiting for the blue-faced cultivator from number 129 to increase the price, the black-robed old man couldn't wait to speak up. I agree to this price. I choose to trade with Dao friend number 664. Time stones were things that could only be found by chance. Sometimes, one couldn't even buy such things with points. After Ning Cheng's bid suppressed the blue-faced cultivator from number 129, his face turned even more blue. His spiritual consciousness coldly lingered on Ning Cheng's body for a while before finally moving away. Ning Cheng guessed that this fellow wouldn't let him go, but how could he care about it at this time? Strength was king. Only by improving one's strength would one not have to look at others' faces. Otherwise, even if he gave the spiritual consciousness cultivation method to this blue-faced cultivator, no one would thank him. Time stones belonged to the category of bartering, and the merchant house wouldn't take even 1% of the price. Therefore, after Ning Cheng handed over the 5 time stones and 656,500 points, he managed to obtain the spiritual consciousness cultivation method. The spiritual consciousness cultivation method, just as the black-robed old man said, was not only broken, but also badly damaged. From the outside, it only looked like a few thin pages. Ning Qing didn't use his spiritual consciousness to check it. Instead, he directly placed a restriction on it and threw it into his ring. Chapter 868. Ning Qing obtained an unknown spiritual consciousness spirit technique cultivation method, causing more and more people to notice him. From time to time, someone would sweep over him with their spiritual consciousness. Peng Ruimei spoke in Ning Cheng's ear with some worry. Ning Cheng, you should not have competed for that spiritual consciousness cultivation method. The cultivator with a green face and sparse hair was called O Yendu. He had a nickname, Lifeless Poison Hand. Anyone who offended him would never be able to survive under his hands. This person had a dark and sinister heart and had killed many innocent people in the Grand Essence ruins. Yet, he still lived a carefree life. He also has an absolute escape technique. Even Tao birth experts can hardly keep him here. Ning Qing showed a noncommittal smile. If they were in the 4 grand starry skies, then he might have felt some fear. In this place, he had nothing to worry about. As long as he was full, his family would not starve. Why would he be afraid of a mere O Yendu? O Yendu would flee if he encountered a Tao birth expert, but why couldn't he? After the exchange of spiritual consciousness cultivation methods, the scene did not seem to be as enthusiastic as before. All the way to the 500th number, the transaction seemed a little dull. Although some high-priced treasures also appeared in the middle of the auction, none of them could be compared to the spiritual consciousness cultivation method, which could be exchanged for more than 600,000 points and 5 times stones. More than 100 people quickly passed by, and soon it would be Ning Cheng's turn. However, Ning Cheng had already made up his mind, so when it was his turn, he would directly skip it. Originally, Ning Cheng wanted to come up with a piece of space crystal, but after he repeatedly showed off in the limelight, he dispelled the idea. Regardless of whether the space crystal was valuable or not, he felt that he shouldn't take it out again. What he wanted to buy was a divine artifact long spear. When the time came, he could buy it at the merchant house. He didn't necessarily have to use space crystals to exchange for it. The item I want to trade is a Tao fruit tree. As the cultivator in seat 637 reported the items he wanted to trade, the trading venue, which had gradually calmed down, was once again stirred up by the words Tao fruit tree. A Tao fruit was worth hundreds of thousands of points. How much was a Tao fruit tree worth? Ning Cheng also eagerly looked at seat 637, this seat was very close to him. The person who wanted to trade the Tao fruit tree turned out to be a bald monk with a huge string of prayer beads around his neck. Although Ning Cheng's cultivation was not high, his vision was not bad. As soon as he saw this monk, he knew that this person was at least on the same level as O Yendu. Peng Ruimei, who was standing next to him, sent out a sound transmission, Ning Cheng, this monk is very powerful. Don't get involved. This person was called Zhu Mei, and he had a nickname similar to O Yendu. People called him Heartless Monk. He was one of the Grand Essence ruins 4 without. Don't look at him because he looked simple and honest. But in fact, he was ruthless and didn't have a heart. This kind of person will never be kind enough to take out the Tao fruit tree. No matter what the price is, don't bid. Sure enough, as soon as Peng Ruimei's voice reached Ning Cheng, the disturbance on the scene subsided. Apparently, many people recognized the Heartless Monk. No one would believe that the Heartless Monk would really take out a treasure like the Tao fruit tree to sell. It was just like a dog, could you make it change its habit of eating shit? Ning Cheng was just about to ask about the Grand Essence ruins for nothingness when he saw the Heartless Monk Zhu Mei raise his hand. In the next moment, a 3-foot-tall Tao fruit tree appeared in the middle of the venue's main stage. Even someone like Ning Cheng, who had never seen a Tao fruit tree before, knew that it was a Tao fruit tree at a glance. The tree trunk also exuded a faint Tao charm, which meant that it couldn't be faked. The tree trunk also looked lush, with lush branches and leaves. The only flaw on the surface of this Tao fruit tree was that it didn't have a single Tao fruit on it. The Heartless Monk touched his head and continued to speak in a simple and honest tone, "Seniors, elder brothers, this is the Heartless Monk. If it weren't for this monk, I wouldn't have sold this Tao fruit tree. As long as anyone can give me 200,000 points, this Dao fruit tree will belong to them. But because of my ignorance, even after cultivating this Dao fruit tree for a few years, I still don't know its name. I've given almost all the cultivation resources to this Dao fruit tree. If I don't sell it now, I can't even feed it myself. Today, I will put my Dao fruit tree here. I hope that a Dao friend who knows more about this Dao fruit tree can treat it well. With a simple and honest appearance, coupled with a sincere tone, almost no one doubted the heartless monk's words. In fact, almost no one here didn't doubt the heartless monk's words. Not every cultivator was like Ning Cheng, who had come to this place for less than a year. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that 200,000 points for such a Dao fruit tree was a free gift. But after this Dao fruit tree came out, no one offered a price. No one here was a fool. Because this Dao fruit tree had already absorbed all of its vitality. What remained here was just an empty shell. Don't look at the lush surface of this Dao fruit tree. It was only temporarily powered by spirit crystals. Moreover, this situation could only last for 3 days at most. After 3 days, this Dao fruit tree would wither completely. Moreover, as the heartless monk said, no one knew about this Dao fruit tree or what kind of Dao fruit tree it was. Although the surface of the Dao fruit tree still had a faint Dao charm, this Dao charm was no longer the Dao charm of the Dao fruit tree's core. Instead, it was the Dao charm of the Dao fruit tree that was about to dissipate. This Dao charm could be found on any Dao fruit tree. If this Dao fruit tree still had its vitality, others could still judge what kind of Dao fruit tree it was through its vitality and Dao charm. But this Dao fruit tree's vitality was about to dissipate. Even if all the major sects in the Grand Essence domain gathered to cultivate it, they wouldn't be able to keep it alive. Who would be stupid enough to buy a dying Dao fruit tree with no place to spend their points? What's more, the things the heartless monk wanted to exchange for weren't things that ordinary people with big hearts wouldn't dare to accept. This person had a terrible reputation and didn't care about morality or principles. Therefore, one could confirm that this Dao fruit tree didn't belong to the heartless monk himself. Instead, it was something he killed and robbed. Most likely, after this monk killed someone and snatched the Dao fruit tree, he absorbed the vitality of the Dao fruit tree, and then came here to scam others. Just when everyone thought that this Dao fruit tree was about to be auctioned, a bid of 200,000 points suddenly appeared on the bidding screen. Peng Ruimei sat next to Ning Cheng, so she naturally knew that Ning Cheng had made the bid. She sent a voice transmission to Ning Cheng with some hatred. "Why didn't you listen to me? Can you even bid for this thing?" Immediately, the cultivators in the trading venue realized that Ning Cheng had made the bid and immediately turned their gazes towards Ning Cheng. Just how many points did this unfamiliar eternal cultivator have? He had already spent 700,000 to 800,000 points before, and now he wanted to spend another 200,000 points to buy this useless and even dead Dao fruit tree? Taking a step back, even if this Dao fruit tree didn't die, could a rogue cultivator like him cultivate it? Besides, how big of a heart did one need to be to buy something from the heartless monk? Kong Ning also felt stunned. When Ning Cheng bought the spiritual consciousness cultivation method, she had already felt shocked by how Ning Cheng had so many points. But now, Ning Cheng actually wanted to spend another 200,000 points to buy something from the heartless monk. Could one buy something from the heartless monk? Whether it was real or fake, as long as it belonged to the heartless monk, no one could buy it. She couldn't care about anything else and quickly sent a voice transmission to Ning Cheng. "Senior apprentice brother Ning, you must not buy this Dao fruit tree. It's not about 200,000 points." Ning Cheng smiled, but before he could answer Kong Ning, Shan Yaozhen sent a voice transmission. "Senior apprentice brother Ning, don't buy this Dao fruit tree." Ning Cheng looked at Shan Yaozhen in surprise. Since when did this woman become so concerned about people? Shan Yaozhen had no choice but to care about Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng bought the heartless monk's Dao fruit tree, which meant that the heartless monk would most likely plot against him. Wouldn't the points bag she had been eyeing fly away in vain? Sister Ishuang, this person really is an idiot. He even dared to buy the heartless monk's things. Na Yuanxiang, who knew Ning Cheng from a distance, shook her head and spoke with some disdain. Shuri Shuang sneered, "This is a stupid person with a lot of points. He even dares to take advantage of us. It's not a big deal for him to buy the heartless monk's Dao fruit tree." Whether this person was stupid or not, Ning Cheng still needed this Dao fruit tree. As soon as this Dao fruit tree came out, he vaguely felt that it was a thunder-attributed Dao fruit tree. He immediately connected to the everlasting blue thunder fort and felt the everlasting blue thunder fort pulsating slightly. The everlasting blue thunder fort was a thunder-attributed weapon. Therefore, it would only show a slight reaction when facing a top-grade treasure with the same attribute. Similar to the lack of spiritual consciousness spirit techniques and cultivation methods, Ning Cheng also lacked a powerful thunder-attributed spirit technique. This thunder-attributed Dao fruit tree might not bring him a thunder-attributed spirit technique, but it could help him deduce his own thunder-attributed spirit technique. Moreover, Ning Cheng's purpose wasn't just this. He was a Starry Sky Grade 9 Pill Emperor. Within the 4 Grand Starry Skies, his alchemy level could be said to be the best. Even the premier Pill Emperor Tsang Tsaiha wasn't as good as him. But after coming to the Grand Essence Realm, everyone here was a pill deity and a pill sage. In this place, as long as one couldn't refine Dao pills, even if one could use divine grasses to refine the medicinal pills needed by Dao transformation holy emperors, one could only be called a pill deity. At most, they would give one a title, Dao transformation pill deity. Only those who could refine Dao pills could be called pill sages. A Dao sculpting pill sage was far more sought after and valuable than a Dao transformation pill deity. But how many pill sages could refine Dao pills? No sect had the confidence to give a Dao fruit to an alchemist to try refining a Dao pill. Even if one became a pill sage, how many Dao fruits would one waste? Therefore, Dao pills could only be found by chance in the market. Most cultivators didn't seek Dao pills at all. Instead, they directly looked for Dao fruits. Ning Cheng's second purpose for this Dao fruit tree was to become a true pill sage. Only with this Dao fruit tree could he learn how to refine Dao pills without any scruples. Using points to buy Dao fruits to learn how to refine Dao pills. Even Ning Cheng couldn't afford it. As for the fate of this Dao fruit tree, Ning Cheng didn't worry about it at all. He had the mysterious yellow bead and a pile of wood origin crystals. As for law soil, he could get as much as he wanted. He didn't believe that he couldn't save this thunder-attributed Dao fruit tree. Chapter 869. Without a second bid, Ning Cheng obtained the Dao fruit tree at a price of 200,000 points without any dispute. Kong Ning and Peng Ruimei could only sigh. They didn't have a good relationship with Ning Cheng, and since Ning Cheng didn't listen to their advice, they naturally couldn't do anything about it. After transferring out 200,000 points, a ring containing a Dao fruit tree appeared in front of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out and saw the Dao fruit tree inside. He immediately took out a jade box, put the ring into the jade box, and threw it into his true spirit world. Ning Cheng believed that Kong Ning and Peng Ruimei would not lie to him. Therefore, even if he bought the heartless monk's things, he had to be careful. His jade box was protected by restrictions. Therefore, after he threw the ring into the jade box, even if the heartless monk did something to the Dao fruit tree, he could go back and slowly deal with it. Whether they were cheated or looking for trouble, apart from a few cultivators who coveted Ning Cheng's points, most of the cultivators no longer paid any attention to Ning Cheng. The trade fair continued, but when it was Ning Cheng's turn, Ning Cheng directly skipped it. Until the end of the transaction, Ning Cheng did not make any moves. Most people got what they wanted and left one after another. Seeing Kong Ning's appearance, Ning Cheng knew what she was thinking and simply stopped her from speaking. Junior apprentice sister Kong Ning, you can go back first. You can always return the points you owe me in the future. Kong Ning had reached the consummate level of the eternal realm. Now that she had obtained the Dao fruit, the first thing she wanted to do was to return to seclusion. The reason why he did not leave immediately was because he was worried that he would owe Ning Cheng points. Many thanks, senior apprentice brother Ning. Kong Ning quickly thanked him. She indeed had the same thoughts as Ning Cheng. Both of them wanted to go back to seclusion and advance to the Dao sculpting realm as soon as possible. As for the points she owed Ning Cheng, she planned to return them to Ning Cheng after she reached Dao sculpting. Before leaving, Kong Ning did not forget to send a sound transmission to Ning Cheng, reminding him to be careful of the heartless monk. Peng Ruimei and Ning Cheng greeted each other, before also hurriedly leaving. Ning Cheng did not immediately leave. He had finally arrived at the Quest Merchant House's silver house. As such, he naturally wanted to go in and see if there was a spear that he needed. This was the first time that Ning Cheng had come to the Quest Merchant House. As such, he had not even entered the black building on the ground floor. After arriving at the silver building, Ning Cheng could not help but marvel at the things here. Talismans, divine herbs, materials, magic treasures, cultivation techniques. The cheapest spear-shaped magic treasures here only cost a few thousand points, while the most expensive ones cost hundreds of thousands of points. Not to mention a spear worth a few thousand points, even if it was worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of points, Ning Cheng would not be satisfied with it. After hesitating for a while, Ning Cheng left only 100,000 points in his hands and used the rest to purchase artifact crafting materials and divine grasses for alchemy. Instead of spending a high price to buy a divine spear that he was not very satisfied with, it was better to buy some materials to go back and refine it himself. Ning Cheng could now craft top-grade Dao artifact long spears. Plus, his celestial river flame had already advanced to the spirit grade. It would not be impossible for him to raise his artifact crafting level to the next level. Fei Er didn't have to wait for long before Ranhausen hurried over. A moment later, Yuan Qianping also arrived. Big brother, junior apprentice sister Qianping didn't guess wrong. That fellow really came to the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Ranhausen hadn't even taken a seat when he spoke up eagerly. When Fei Er heard this, his eyes flashed with killing intent. He then calmly waved his hand and said, "Hao Sen, remember, no matter what happens, you must remain calm. What's more, it's just an ant that could die at any time." Ranhausen nodded and sat down. He didn't think much of it in his heart. No matter what happened, he had to remain calm. Who was the one who smashed the spiritual tea table yesterday? But he wouldn't say it out loud. "Qianping, you say it. You didn't do anything. Did something happen?" Fei Er sat down and said to Yuan Qianping. Yuan Qianping nodded and also sat down. Compared to Ranhausen, she truly remained calm. At least, her emotions didn't fluctuate much. This person's name is Ning Cheng. He obtained a lot of law soil in the Broken Land. Moreover, the grade of the law soil is quite high. This law soil brought him 1.5 million points. What? Even Fei Er, who tried to calm Ranhausen down, couldn't help but exclaim. He directly interrupted Yuan Qianping's words, 1.5 million points worth of law soil. Yuan Qianping spoke up cautiously, "Yes, 1.5 million points worth of law soil. This matter has already been confirmed." Where did he go? Did he leave the Grand Essence Ruins public square? Fei Er had long forgotten what it meant to be calm. He had the same thoughts as most people. Since Ning Cheng could hand over 1.5 million points worth of law soil, then he definitely had more than just this amount of law soil. Yuan Qianping took a deep breath and continued, "No, he didn't leave the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Instead, he went to the Grand Essence Ruins Quest House to participate in the Dao Confirming Exchange. The Dao Confirming Exchange is over, but Ning Cheng didn't leave the Quest House. I guess he's still buying things inside. I've already asked someone to keep an eye on the outside of the Quest House." Fei Er stood up eagerly and spoke up without hesitation, "Let's go to the Quest House now." At this moment, he had already forgotten what he had said before about the need to remain calm. Yuan Qianping shook her head and said, "Big brother, this Ning Cheng is a bit strange. He went in with Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain's sect master Peng Qiyuan's daughter, Peng Ruimei. He also knows River Luo's sacred sect's disciple, Kong Ning. He even lent Kong Ning some points during the exchange. Hearing that Ning Cheng was with Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain sect master and was also familiar with River Luo sacred sect's disciple, Fei Er finally calmed down. He slowly sat down again, frowned, and didn't speak. Whether it was Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain or River Luo sacred sect, they weren't something a small beyond heaven path could compete with. I feel that this person's friendship with Peng Ruimei and Kong Ning is very ordinary. Yuan Qianping spoke with certainty. Fei Er's eyes lit up. Why? Yuan Qianping explained, because after the exchange, Kong Ning said that she would return Ning Cheng's points in the future and left in a hurry. She didn't invite Ning Cheng to River Luo sacred sect. Peng Ruimei also didn't invite Ning Cheng to Flaming Feather Spirit Mountain. Even so, aren't they friends? Fei Er frowned. Yuan Qianping showed a slight smile. There are many kinds of friends. There is a kind of friend who pays attention to your news every day. There is also a kind of friend. Even if you disappear for no reason, they would only occasionally think of you after a long time. They would never investigate why you disappeared. Fei Er clapped his hands and laughed. Qianping, my Beyond Heaven path is truly fortunate to have you. If he wanted to kill Ning Cheng publicly before to establish his prestige for Beyond Heaven path, then it would be best to kill Ning Cheng secretly now. Whether it was because Ning Cheng knew Peng Ruimei and Kong Ning, or because of the law soil on Ning Cheng, it wouldn't be easy to kill Ning Cheng publicly. Once he makes any moves, I can get news about him immediately. Yuan Qianping didn't care about Fei Er's words and spoke with a calm voice. It's best if he leaves the Grand Essence Ruins public square immediately. Ranhausen said with a fierce voice. Ning Cheng didn't think about leaving the Grand Essence Ruins public square immediately. However, he had already come out of the Quest Hall's merchant house. He originally wanted to buy an attack-type weapon, but he ended up buying a bunch of artifact crafting and alchemy materials instead. Next, he wanted to change his mission card and rent a cave abode. No matter who wanted to deal with him, as long as he remained in the Grand Essence Ruins public square, the other party wouldn't dare to do anything openly. This Dao friend, Monk Ju Mei greets you. Ning Cheng had just walked out of the Quest Hall's merchant house when a fat monk with a smile greeted him and gave Ning Cheng a one-handed salute. Heartless monk. Ning Cheng secretly became vigilant in his heart, but he still asked in doubt, may I ask why this master is looking for me? The heartless monk touched his bald head in a charmingly naive manner and spoke with a slightly embarrassed tone, I came here specifically to thank you. Those 200,000 points saved my life. If it weren't for this Dao friend's help, I'm afraid that I would still be in dire straits. Ning Cheng calmly replied, Master Ju Mei, you're too polite. Your Dao fruit tree only costs 200,000 points, which isn't too expensive. No, I naturally know about my tree. Because I didn't take good care of it, the vitality of that Dao fruit tree is about to collapse. This Dao fruit tree is my lifeblood, and now it belongs to Dao friend. I stayed here to wait for Dao friend because I wanted to ask Dao friend to take good care of my Dao fruit tree. Of course, I believe that since Dao friend bought this Dao fruit tree, you will definitely keep it alive. The heartless monk spoke with even more sincerity. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile, Master made a mistake. This Dao fruit tree doesn't belong to Master now, but to me. The reason why I bought this Dao fruit tree is that I like to drink tea. The smile on the heartless monk's face turned even brighter, and he repeatedly spoke up, yes, I made a mistake. This Dao fruit tree is yours, Dao friend. But what does Dao friend buying this Dao fruit tree have to do with drinking tea? Ning Cheng showed a smile, because I heard that using the Dao fruit tree to light a fire would make the spiritual tea more refreshing and fragrant. Plus, I have a lot of points on me, so I wanted to give it a try. If Master doesn't have anything else, then I'll take my leave. You said that you didn't buy this Dao fruit tree to save it, but to burn it and make spiritual tea. The heartless monk looked at Ning Cheng with his mouth wide open, his eyes filled with confusion. The innocent look on his face made people unable to bear to lie to him. Ning Cheng didn't seem to care that the heartless monk's cultivation was much higher than his. He patted the heartless monk's shoulder and said, of course, you wouldn't be naive enough to think that I would save this Dao fruit tree, would you? I have a lot of points, so I like to do stupid things. Let's go. Looking at Ning Cheng's back, the heartless monk lowered his head, his eyes filled with murderous intent. A little ant dared to leave a spiritual consciousness imprint on me. What an idiot. Is that the heartless monk? How could this person be familiar with the heartless monk? Away from Ning Cheng, the blonde Fei heir asked with a frown. Even if he was the Alliance Master of Beyond Heaven Path, he didn't dare to underestimate the heartless monk. Yuan Qianping, who stood next to him, gave a slight bow and said, the heartless monk sold a Dao fruit tree at the trade meet, and he ended up buying it. He even dared to buy the heartless monk's things. Fei heir's eyes showed surprise. Yuan Qianping smiled. Not only did he dare to buy the heartless monk's things, but he also snatched a cultivation method from lifeless poison hand at the trade meet. No wonder he dared to kill people from my Beyond Heaven path. It turns out that he's an idiot. Fei heir muttered to himself and then sneered, since he's an idiot, let's go. Chapter 870. Wait. Yuan Qianping stopped Fei heir. If this person wasn't so arrogant, we could have gone up now. But this person's performance shows that we're not the only ones watching him. There are many people on this public square, and many people have their eyes on him. Fei heir didn't put Ning Cheng in his eyes, which was why he wanted to go up now. Yuan Qianping's words reminded him that Ning Cheng was someone who would disappear soon. Since they weren't the only ones watching Ning Cheng, they couldn't look for him openly before Ning Cheng disappeared. Someone will keep an eye on him. We don't have to come out in person. Ranhausen said from the side. Ning Cheng naturally would not be stupid enough to place a spiritual consciousness imprint on the heartless monk. If he did so, coupled with his performance at the trade fair, it would definitely give the heartless monk a feeling that he did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. It was better to let the opponent despise you than to let the opponent take you seriously. Ning Cheng had learned this trick from Duan Gantai. Duan Gantai knew how to act like an idiot the most. On the surface, Ning Cheng looked down on the heartless monk. But in fact, he had always been vigilant. Not only the heartless monk, but he also found several other people who were secretly stalking him. This didn't include people he hadn't found yet, such as Lifeless Poison Hand. Ning Cheng didn't care about these people. He went straight to the quest hall and replaced the black card in his hand with a silver card. Since he had spent more than 1.3 million points in the quest hall, he easily exchanged them for a silver card. A silver card required one to spend 1 million points in the quest hall's merchant house. Ning Cheng's points from the exchange meeting were also counted as points for the quest hall's merchant house. Adding it all up, he easily exchanged for a silver card. Walking out of the quest hall, Ning Cheng ignored the cultivators secretly following him. He had nothing to fear. Besides, he had no intention of leaving the Grand Essence Ruins public square right now. No matter how ruthless the heartless monk and lifeless poison hand were, they wouldn't dare to openly start a fight in the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Do you know how long I've been waiting for you? A cold voice fell in Ning Cheng's ears, and Ning Cheng immediately saw Shan Yaotzen with an unhappy expression. You were waiting for me? Ning Cheng frowned and looked at Shan Yaotzen, who had stopped him. Shan Yaotzen's hands trembled in anger. She had an appointment with Ning Cheng at the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant. But even after waiting for more than an hour in the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant, she still didn't see Ning Cheng come over. In order to wait for Ning Cheng, she even sent Ying Yongxian away. It had always been others who fawned over her. When had it ever been her turn to spend time waiting for a rogue cultivator? And this rogue cultivator was still holding back. Seeing Ning Cheng's blank look, Shan Yaotzen suppressed the anger in her heart and tried to slow down her tone. Senior apprentice brother Ning, did you forget that I sent you a sound transmission saying that we would meet at the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant after the exchange meet? She still had something to ask of Ning Cheng, and did not want to offend Ning Cheng at this time. Ning Cheng suddenly spoke up, yes, there is indeed such a thing. But I didn't agree to it. Could it be that someone impersonated me and promised junior sister Dan? Shan Yaotzen took a deep breath. She believed that Ning Cheng would never forget this matter. Ning Cheng didn't even bother to go to the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant. The only explanation was that he didn't take her, Shan Yaozen, seriously. Shan Yaozen's guess was right this time. Ning Cheng indeed didn't take her, Shan Yaozen, seriously. Go to the Grand Essence Ruins restaurant. Do you think you can go there just because you said so? Senior apprentice brother Ning, you should know about the Grand Essence Great Meat, right? Shan Yaozen held back her inner turmoil and tried to calm her extremely unhappy mood. Ning Cheng shook his head. I don't know about it. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Shan Yaozen, on seeing that Ning Cheng didn't even know about the Grand Essence Great Meat, suppressed her temper and explained, do you know what the most important thing for an eternal cultivator to achieve Dao sculpting is? Finding a Dao fruit. No. That's finding a good cultivation method. Otherwise, it's... Yes, it's about finding a good opportunity. Shan Yaozen's expression had already turned ugly. She didn't wait for Ning Cheng to guess again and took the initiative to speak up, neither. If you come from a big sect's inner sect, you would understand that what really affects an eternal cultivator's Dao sculpting is the conversion of essence qi. A Dao sculpting cultivator's strength has a lot to do with the conversion of essence qi. Moreover, the location of the essence qi conversion, the timing, the source of the spirit qi, etc., all of which directly affect the height you can reach in the future. Of course, if you only want to reach Dao sculpting and don't care about the height you can reach after reaching Dao sculpting, then you can just ignore what I said. Ning Cheng's heart suddenly moved. He had indeed spoken nonsense before because he had no intention of talking to this woman at all. But Shan Yaozen's words made him understand that big sects truly had some tricks up their sleeves. If he didn't put Shan Yaozen in his eyes before, then now he understood that Shan Yaozen's words had an effect on him. According to his original plan, he would have found a place to start converting his celestial essence into spirit essence immediately. But listening to Shan Yaozen's words, he understood that there were still many things to pay attention to during the spirit essence conversion. The best place to convert spirit essence in the Grand Essence realm is the extraterritorial spirit spring. However, there are only a few people who can enter the extraterritorial spirit spring to convert spirit essence. The people who enter each time are the best in the Grand Essence Great Meat. If you can join a sect and participate in the Grand Essence Great Meat, you will have the opportunity to enter the extraterritorial spirit spring to remold your spirit essence. Shan Yaozen put in a lot of effort today. After talking about the extraterritorial spirit spring, she then said to Ning Cheng, in fact, you have a lot of potential. My River Luo sacred sect lacks talented cultivators like you the most. If you want to join my River Luo sacred sect, I will do my best to help you and then let you participate in the Grand Essence Great Meat. As long as Ning Cheng wanted to join the River Luo sacred sect, then her goal would be achieved. As for whether Ning Cheng would really join the River Luo sacred sect, then stop dreaming. The River Luo sacred sect wasn't a place where just anyone could enter. As for the extraterritorial divine spring, that was even more impossible. Even she, Shan Yaozen, wasn't qualified to enter the extraterritorial spirit spring, so what about you, a rogue cultivator? Just like how Shan Yaozen didn't sincerely invite Ning Cheng to River Luo's sacred sect, Shan Yaozen's words also fell on deaf ears to Ning Cheng. He only heard 4 words, extraterritorial divine spring. Junior Marshal Sister Dan, thank you for your reminder. I've obtained a cultivation method and want to go into seclusion for a few months. After a few months, I want to participate in the Grand Essence Great Meat. What do you think, Junior Marshal Sister Shan? Ning Cheng understood Shan Yaozen's thoughts, but he had no intention of looking for Shan Yaozen. Originally, he planned to go into seclusion to convert his spirit essence. But now that he knew that spirit essence conversion couldn't be done casually, he decided to look for some knowledge in this area and study it carefully. Shan Yaozen felt a little disappointed when she heard Ning Cheng's words. She had hoped that her appearance and the attraction of the River Luo sacred sect would make Ning Cheng rely on her. That way, she could openly ask Ning Cheng to borrow points. Maybe she wouldn't need to borrow points, and Ning Cheng would take the initiative to give it to her. Even if Ning Cheng obtained the spiritual consciousness spirit technique cultivation method, he would give it to her. But now that Ning Cheng wanted to go into seclusion, she couldn't take Ning Cheng away by force. Thinking of this, Shan Yaozhen wanted to kick him directly. But then she thought about how she had been wronged for so long. It didn't matter if she suffered for a few more months. She would still have a chance once Ning Cheng came out of seclusion. Thinking of this, Shan Yaozhen took out her communication pearl and said, "In that case, let's exchange communication pearls. Don't worry, I'll go back to the sect and speak up for you." In the distance, the people from beyond Heaven Path stared at the intimate conversation between Shan Yaozhen and Ning Cheng. They didn't expect Ning Cheng to have a relationship with Kong Ning and even have a close relationship with River Luo Sacred Sect's Shan Yaozhen. After some rogue cultivators saw the relationship between Ning Cheng and Shan Yaozhen, they immediately dispelled the idea of attacking Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng smiled and exchanged communication pearls with Shan Yaozhen before heading straight to the cave rental area of the Grand Essence ruins. With Shan Yaozhen as a shield, at least no one would come up to talk nonsense before he entered the cave rental area. There weren't many people in the cave rental area of the Grand Essence ruins. From this, one could tell that almost all the caves here had been rented out. The cultivator in charge of the cave rental didn't even bother to raise his head when he saw Ning Cheng with his spiritual consciousness. He didn't have to worry about renting a cave in the Grand Essence ruins. A rogue cultivator with low cultivation like Ning Cheng wasn't worthy of raising his head. Go to the periphery of the Grand Essence ruins public square to rent out the caves here. After Ning Cheng approached, the cultivator in charge gave him a few words without raising his head. Ning Cheng threw the silver card in his hand in front of the cultivator in charge and spoke with a cold tone, "I want to rent a cave." Seeing the silver card in front of him, the cultivator immediately stood up and grabbed Ning Cheng's silver card with both hands. He then spoke with a respectful tone, "May I ask what kind of cave does this Dao friend want to rent?" A cultivator with a silver card was an important figure in the quest hall. Such a person wasn't someone a cultivator in charge of cave rental could afford to offend. "What's the price? Let's hear it." Ning Cheng's tone slowed down a bit. "The cheapest one is 1,000 points a year, and the better ones are 5,000 points or 12,000 points a year. The best one is 30,000 points a year, and the better ones." Ning Cheng interrupted the cultivator in charge, "I want a cave with 30,000 points a year." Hearing that Ning Cheng wanted to rent a cave with 30,000 points a year, the cultivator's tone turned even more respectful. How many years would it take for an ordinary cultivator to earn 30,000 points? Yet, this person used it to rent a cave for a year. It showed how rich he was. In just a short time, the cultivator in charge helped Ning Cheng with the cave rental procedures. The number plate of the Immortal's cave was B1391. Not long after Ning Cheng left with the jade card, a cultivator in black came to the cave rental place. With Ning Cheng's experience in front of him, the cultivator in charge didn't dare to speak any nonsense. The black-robed cultivator didn't rent a cave abode. Instead, he threw out a storage bag and said in an extremely hoarse voice, "There are 5,000 spirit crystals inside. Tell me, which cave abode did the person in front rent?" The cultivator in charge naturally wouldn't help Ning Cheng hide it. He put away the spirit crystals without hesitation and told the black-robed cultivator about Ning Cheng's cave. Chapter 871. The 30,000-point cave abode was indeed extraordinarily good. Not only was the god's spiritual energy incomparably dense, but the environment of the cave abode was also magnificent. Ning Cheng wasn't in the mood to observe the scenery here. After activating the cave's restrictions with the cave's jade card, he immediately entered the cave and took out the ring containing the Dao fruit tree. In less than a day, this Dao fruit tree's branches had already turned yellow. The Dao fruit tree's vitality was even thinner, and one could barely feel any aura of life from it. Ning Cheng didn't immediately transplant the Dao fruit tree into the true spirit world and use the law soil to cultivate it. Instead, he placed his hands on the Dao fruit tree and immersed himself in it. Although Ning Cheng's cultivation was still at the middle stage eternal realm, his spiritual consciousness was so strong that it didn't lose out to ordinary Dao sculpting cultivators. As for the strength of his sea of consciousness, it was not something a Tao sculpting cultivator could compare to. How many people had a starry sky sea of consciousness? Even the most top-grade cultivation method would not be able to open up a starry sky sea of consciousness. Circulating his spiritual consciousness continuously, Ning Cheng carefully searched every corner of the Tao fruit tree. Even if Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness grew stronger, after a while, his face turned pale and covered in sweat. After an hour, Ning Cheng finally gave out a sigh, and his spiritual consciousness finally locked onto the bottom of this Tao fruit tree's tree core. Not only was there an extremely concealed spiritual consciousness mark here, but this spiritual consciousness mark was also covered by an extremely small concealment restriction. With this kind of concealment effect, even Tao sculpting cultivators who were not proficient in the arrayed Tao might not necessarily be able to find it. Although Ning Cheng's cultivation was weak, he had his own advantages. Not only was his spiritual consciousness powerful, but he was also an array Tao master. In the Grand Essence realm, Ning Cheng's array formations had already reached the level of a low-level spirit array master. With Ning Cheng's current strength, it was only a matter of time before he found the spiritual consciousness imprint left behind by the heartless monk. Ning Cheng could easily burn away this spiritual consciousness imprint with his celestial river flame. However, Ning Cheng did not do so. Instead, he peeled off the spiritual consciousness imprint left behind by the heartless monk from the Tao fruit tree. Then, he took out an ordinary tree and poured it into it. After finishing these, Ning Cheng did not stop, he began to refine the array flags. After another 2 hours, after arranging everything properly, Ning Cheng put on the appearance-changing mask and quietly left the immortal cave where he was located. He went straight to the quest hall and applied for a new black quest card. The cultivator in charge of renting the cave felt quite satisfied today. Although Ning Cheng scared him once, he still received 5,000 spirit crystals as compensation. 5,000 divinity crystals was not a small amount to him. Are there any cave residences for rent? A hoarse voice alerted the cultivator in charge of renting the cave. When he raised his head, he found that a man in embroidered robes had appeared in front of him. Without waiting for the cultivator in charge to say that there was no cave to rent, the man in embroidered robes took a few deep breaths, took out a storage bag and threw it to the cultivator in charge of renting the cave. Then with a slightly hoarse voice, he said, "Quickly help me find a cave. These are yours. I need to rest." At a glance, an expert could tell that there was something wrong with the cultivation method of this man in embroidered robes. The cultivator in charge wanted to say that there was no immortal cave, but after seeing the storage bag, he immediately swept it with his spiritual consciousness. When he saw the 10,000 spirit crystals in the storage bag, he did not hesitate to roll up the storage bag and said, "There's also a cave abode. May I ask what kind of cave abode Tao friend needs?" The man in embroidered robes gave an N sound and said, "The cave I rented last time was worth 12,000 points per year. This time, I'll rent it again." After saying that, the man in embroidered robes handed out a black point card. When the cultivator in charge saw the man take out 10,000 spirit crystals as a tip and wanted to rent a cave abode worth 12,000 points, he immediately thought that this man had an extraordinary background. He didn't expect that this man would just take out a black card. But since he had already received a tip of 10,000 spirit crystals, he didn't care about anything else. The cultivator in charge quickly helped the man in embroidered robes complete the formalities and sent him away. Cultivator caves in the Grand Essence Ruins public square generally had warning array formations and restrictions. As long as a cultivator wasn't an idiot, he or she could use the array formations to issue a warning if an enemy invaded. Therefore, the cultivator caves here were basically safe. Of course, this kind of safety was only basic. If you met a cultivator with a much higher cultivation than you, the moment you issued a warning, that person would have already rushed into the cave and killed you. Even if your warning attracted the cultivators in charge of security, the person who started the attack would have already left. If the person killed was someone important, the Grand Essence Ruins might even send someone to investigate and intercept the intruder. If the person who was killed was just an insignificant person, the investigation would only last for a period of time at most, and then it would be over. It wasn't that such a thing didn't happen before. It had once happened in the Grand Essence Ruins public square cave abode. Ning Qing rented the cave abode for 30,000 points a year. It was a medium-grade cave abode within the B grade. Therefore, the security facilities here were naturally much higher compared to ordinary caves. Cultivators who came to live here would usually arrange some defensive restrictions and warning restrictions to make it safer. Of course, if one rented an A-grade cave, it would be almost foolproof. Even if the cultivator didn't arrange any restrictions, he or she would still receive the protection of the Strangulation Grand Array after moving in. Once someone invaded, it would trigger the Strangulation Grand Array. At this moment, a small bird landed on the tree outside Ning Cheng's cave abode's restrictions. A moment later, a black-robed cultivator suddenly appeared next to the bird. This black-robed cultivator had completely converged his aura and didn't show even the slightest fluctuation. If the cultivator responsible for renting the cave abode was here, he would have recognized this black-robed cultivator as the one who asked about Ning Cheng's cave abode. After half an incense stick worth of time, the black-robed cultivator's spiritual consciousness slowly swept out. A moment later, a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, it was almost the same as what he expected. The price of the cave abode wasn't low, but the cave abode's defensive restrictions weren't even properly used. In other words, he could kill this ant before the cave abode's warning system was triggered. Then, he could walk away with this ant's ring. After confirming that there was no mistake, the black-robed cultivator carefully walked into the restrictions and raised his hand to throw out some array flags. A moment later, his figure disappeared from the cave abode's restrictions. It was as if he had integrated into the space around him. He couldn't even produce a single fluctuation, let alone trigger the restrictions. After the black-robed cultivator entered the cave abode's restrictions, he immediately felt an extreme sense of danger. Did he discover him? Just when he wanted to force his way in, a deep voice arrived. "Oh Yendu, this monk expected you to come. You really came, hee. It's you. Heartless monk." The black-robed male cultivator immediately recognized the owner of this deep voice. Sure enough, after he finished speaking, a fat monk suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the heartless monk, Zhu Mei. This monk had silently sneaked into Ning Cheng's cave abode without even changing his appearance. "What do you want?" The black-robed O Yendu spoke with a hoarse voice, but he immediately realized that his words were nonsense. Sure enough, the heartless monk showed a simple and honest smile. "Dao friend lifeless, what can I do? This kid's vigilance is so poor that we can make a fortune from it. How about this? Let's divide this kid's things equally. The Dao fruit tree is mine, and I want to take it back. That spiritual consciousness cultivation method is mine." O Yendu spoke with a deep voice. The heartless monk made a "no problem" gesture and whispered, "In that case, let's sign a contract." A contract was an agreement that bound one's essence spirit. Generally speaking, few people would go back on their words. Since the heartless monk said to sign a contract, O Yendu naturally had no problem with it. But he still whispered, "It seems a bit too easy to come in. Could it be a trap?" The heartless monk sneered, "Trick my ass. You don't know how stupid this kid is. He even tried to place a spiritual consciousness imprint on me during the day. Have you ever seen such an idiotic ant?" Hearing that Ning Cheng wanted to place a spiritual consciousness imprint on the heartless monk, O Yendu felt completely relieved. He nodded to the heartless monk and said, "You're good at stealth. You go in front. I'll prevent him from escaping." After the two quickly reached an agreement, they quickly arrived at the entrance of Ning Cheng's secluded cave. Ning Cheng's vague shadow appeared between the two people's spiritual consciousness, and there seemed to be some faint fluctuations in his aura. This kid dares to go into seclusion at such a deep level. I'll break open the cave abode. Let's finish him off in the shortest time possible and then meet up in the Grand Essence Ruins. The heartless monk felt his spiritual consciousness imprint and the fluctuations in Ning Cheng's aura. He then stretched out his tongue and licked his lips. The two of them almost did not have to spend any effort to break into Ning Cheng's immortal cave without any danger. Oh Yendu immediately reached out and grabbed Ning Cheng. But as soon as his hand reached out, he spoke up anxiously, "No, it's not him. Obviously, it wasn't Ning Cheng. The one in seclusion here was just a weapon substitute." Ning Cheng had left his aura fluctuations on the substitute, which fooled Lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk. Even without Oh Yendu's reminder, the Heartless Monk realized that he had been deceived the moment he stepped into Ning Cheng's cave abode. He immediately turned around and left without even taking a break. Unfortunately, this was all within Ning Cheng's calculations. The Heartless Monk had just turned around when a violent explosion erupted in the cave abode, and a murderous light suddenly filled the entire cave abode. The cave abode's restrictions, which Lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk could easily enter before, suddenly became 10 times more complicated. Entrapment arrays and strangulation arrays suddenly appeared, and the whimpering sound of blade lights filled the entire Grand Essence Ruins public square. Even an idiot would realize that someone had launched a sneak attack on a cultivator's cave in the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Moreover, it was a B-grade cultivator's cave. Powerful lights quickly rushed over, causing the Heartless Monk and Lifeless Poison Hand to burn with anxiety. It was just that the cave abode's restrictions, which they could easily break through previously, had suddenly turned into a variety of entrapment and strangulation arrays. But no matter how anxious the two were, they couldn't escape in the shortest time. Chapter 872. By the time the Heartless Monk and Lifeless Poison Hand smashed Ning Cheng's entrapment and killing arrays to pieces, the escaping lights had already arrived in front of them. After the Heartless Monk cursed a few times, he raised his hand and threw out a talisman. The talisman rolled up a bunch of lights and instantly swept away the Heartless Monk. Lifeless Poison Hand could only curse angrily when he saw Heartless Monk leaving. His body glowed with a red radiance, and he turned into a streak of red light before the fleeing lights could catch up to him. Compared to the Heartless Monk, he paid a greater price. He did not obtain the spiritual sense cultivation method, and in order to activate the escape technique, he had to burn his essence blood. Half a day later, the Heartless Monk landed in the depths of the Grand Essence Ruins. He looked back at the Grand Essence Ruins in the distance and took out a jade box full of vitality. After looking at it, he immediately cursed. At this moment, he no longer looked simple and honest. The ferocious expression on his face seemed to want to swallow everything. In just a few more days, even if he brought back the Dao fruit tree, he wouldn't be able to resurrect it. The reason why he had extracted the vitality of the Dao fruit tree was because he was afraid that it would be bought by a powerhouse and he wouldn't be able to get it back. Of course, if a powerhouse really took action, he would also leave a spiritual consciousness imprint on the Dao fruit tree. If this powerhouse managed to raise the Dao fruit tree, he could go and dig it away at any time. If the imprint was discovered, he wouldn't lose anything. Not only was his Dao fruit tree bought by an ant, but he was also tricked by this ant because of a moment of carelessness. How many years has he been in the Grand Essence Ruins? How could he take such a loss? If he, the Heartless Monk, didn't swallow this ant alive, then he would have lived in the Grand Essence Ruins for nothing. Two unidentified cultivators failed in their sneak attack on a cave in the Grand Essence Ruins public square and ended up escaping. News of that incident quickly spread throughout the Grand Essence Ruins public square. The classic version was that these two unidentified cultivators triggered the restrictions of the Grand Essence Ruins public square when they attacked the Grand Essence Ruins public square cave. As a result, the cultivators guarding the Grand Essence public square's cave immediately rushed to the scene and severely injured the two. If these two didn't have top-grade escape talismans, they would have already died in the Grand Essence Ruins cave. No matter how widespread the classic version was, there were still people who spread the real version. In fact, a cultivator named Ning Cheng had offended Lifeless Poison Hand because he acted too recklessly during the Dao confirming exchange meeting. Moreover, this cultivator was bold enough to buy the Heartless Monk's Dao fruit tree. Provoking two powerful people in a row would naturally lead to a sneak attack on his immortal cave. Although no one said that it was Lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk who attacked the cave, everyone guessed that these two were the ones who launched the sneak attack. Don't look at the Grand Essence Ruins public square's propaganda about how powerful their guards were. The one who truly died was Ning Cheng, who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As for Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk, they had only wasted a talisman. After a while, he would still come to the Grand Essence Ruins public square. News of Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk teaming up to kill Ning Cheng in the cave quickly spread out. Most likely, except for Lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk, everyone else thought that Ning Cheng had died. Shan Yaozen, who remained in the Grand Essence Ruins public square, sighed speechlessly when she heard the news. She should have known that people like Ning Cheng wouldn't live for long. It was truly a waste of her efforts. He deserved to die. Apart from Shan Yaozen, only Kong Ning and Peng Ruimei knew about Ning Cheng. But the two of them had already returned to their sects in the Grand Essence domain. Therefore, they didn't hear the news in time. In the end, when they heard the rumors, they could only sigh. They couldn't change anything. Ning Cheng's death was like a speck of dust falling into a boundless lake. It couldn't even cause a ripple. However, the news of Ning Cheng handing over the Law Soil task in the quest hall and obtaining 1.5 million points quickly spread out. In the Grand Essence realm, apart from the Grand Essence ruins, almost all the major sects were concentrated in the Grand Essence domain. Moreover, the Grand Essence Sea was also a part of the Grand Essence domain. No one dared to ignore the Grand Essence Sea. It wasn't just because the Grand Essence Sea had 4 major sects, but more importantly, it had a Tao Perfection powerhouse. The Grand Essence Sea's premier sea sect was a clan rather than a sect. This clan was the Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan. The Grand Essence Sea's premier powerhouse, Man Suatian, was from the Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan. At the same time, Man Suatian was also a Tao Perfection powerhouse. However, Man Suatian never showed up, and almost no one had ever seen his real body. The current ruler of the Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan was Dragon Emperor Man Huishan. Although he lived in the sea, he had the name of a mountain. Man Huishan was not only the Dragon Emperor of the Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan but also the second strongest expert in the Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan after Man Suatian. Rumor had it that he had reached the full circle of Tao Essence and was only one step away from reaching Tao confirming Tao fusion. The difference in strength between Primordial Tao and Tao integration experts was too great. It's just that there were only 2 or 3 Tao Perfection powerhouses in the entire Grand Essence realm. Even if you added in the hidden ones, there wouldn't be more than a handful of them. The Grand Essence Barbarian Dragon Clan's Imperial Palace was one of the most luxurious places in the entire Grand Essence domain. The Dragon Emperor's Imperial Palace was located in the deepest part of the Grand Essence Sea, where the spiritual chi was the densest. Countless beautiful corals and crystals could only pave the periphery of the Imperial Palace. In addition, all kinds of spiritual trees surrounded the entire Imperial Palace. The blue seawater on the seabed flowed around the periphery of the Imperial Palace, but not a single drop of water would seep into the Imperial Palace. If an ordinary person came here, they would think that they had entered a fairy tale world. In fact, the Barbarian Dragon Clan's Imperial Palace wasn't just a fairy tale world, but a cruel place. Any cultivator or sea race that offended the Imperial Palace would be strangled and thrown into the sea without any reason. Any cultivator who wanted to visit the Imperial Palace had to get permission first. After getting permission, they would have to pass through layers of guards to reach the entrance of the Imperial Palace. At this time, in the magnificent and luxurious Imperial Palace, a middle-aged man wearing an imperial crown sat on a chair in the middle of the Imperial Palace. Not far from him, more than a dozen male and female cultivators stood on both sides. Even further away from his seat, there were several dozen men and women standing on both sides. The palace was very quiet, and the middle-aged man wearing the imperial crown had a gloomy expression on his face. In the middle of the empty hall, a young man knelt down. After half an incense stick worth of time, the middle-aged man wearing the imperial crown spoke up in a low voice, "Man Jurin, you're a half-step Tao sculpting expert. Yet, you went to a low-level positional plane and got your body smashed to pieces. Yet, you still have the face to come back. It's my man Huishan's shame to have a useless evil creature like you. Royal father, that kid has a terrifying arrow. I suspect that it's the 5-colored star splitter arrow. The young man quickly spoke up with respect. This person was obviously Manjurin, who had his body smashed to pieces by Pan Qian. Moreover, he hated Ning Qing more than Pan Qian. If Ning Qing hadn't rescued Pan Qian, and if Ning Qing hadn't come to the mysterious Yellow Starland, he would have already succeeded. The reason why Manjurin didn't mention Pan Qian, apart from his hatred for Ning Qing, was that he didn't want to leak the news about Pan Qian. Pan Qian contained the purest ancient bloodline. If he leaked the news about Pan Qian, he feared that Pan Qian's bloodline would have nothing to do with him. Manjurin believed that now that his body had recovered, as long as he worked hard to cultivate, it wouldn't take long for him to catch that giant. 5-colored star splitter arrow? Man Huishan, wearing the imperial crown, repeated in surprise. Manjurin spoke up with even more certainty, Royal Father, I didn't see it wrong. That arrow is most likely the 5-colored star splitter arrow. It doesn't have a bow or an arrow, but when it's activated, it's colorful and has a terrifying power that can destroy everything. Ninth brother, don't lie in front of Royal Father. If it really was the 5-colored star splitter arrow, do you think your essence spirit could come back? Even if you belong to my barbarian dragon clan, you can't come back. A purple-faced man standing a little further down the imperial palace steps couldn't help but scold him. Manjurin quickly spoke up, Second brother, how could I dare to lie in front of Royal Father? That fellow couldn't fully activate the 5-colored star splitter arrow. At most, he could only activate less than 1/10,000th of it. What he shot out wasn't an arrow, but the killing power on the arrow. I'm afraid that even he didn't know about it. Otherwise, how could I have the chance to speak here? The purple-faced man, who Manjurin referred to as second brother, asked again, what's that person's cultivation? Manjurin understood what his second brother meant. He hesitated for a while but still spoke the truth. He should be in the Eternal Realm, but definitely not at the late-stage Eternal Realm. A cultivator who hasn't even reached the late-stage Eternal Realm can shoot the 5-colored star splitter arrow? The purple-faced man frowned. Manjurin saw his royal father's expression turn ugly on the emperor's throne. He quickly explained, that person's strength might look poor, but if he burns his essence blood and lifespan, he doesn't look any weaker than me. He wanted to find a few people to prove it, but none of his followers came back. What's his name? Man Huishan, sitting on the emperor's throne, stopped the purple-faced man from asking any more questions and asked personally. His name is Ning Qing. As soon as Manjurin's words came out, some surprised voices came from the Dragon Palace. Then, an old man in brown robes stood up and bowed to the middle-aged man on the emperor's throne before saying, Dragon Emperor, I know this Ning Qing. Not long ago, this person appeared on the Grand Essence Ruins public square, and he obtained 5 fist-sized clumps of law soil. Wait, you said he obtained 5 fist-sized clumps of law soil? Dragon Emperor Man Huishan interrupted the brown-robed old man's words after hearing those words. The brown-robed old man spoke up in a respectful tone, indeed, this person not only obtained 5 clumps of law soil, but the quality of these clumps of law soil also looks extremely beautiful. The Grand Essence Ruins Quest Hall took out such a clump of law soil and sold it for a very high price. But I don't know if this Ning Qing I'm talking about is the 1/9th prince mentioned. After speaking, the brown-robed old man raised his hand and drew out Ning Qing's appearance. After Manjurin saw Ning Qing's appearance, he immediately pointed at him and said, It's him, it's this guy. Where is he? Man Huishan suppressed his excited tone and asked in a deep voice. His emperor palace lacked law soil. As long as he had enough law soil, he was confident that he could cultivate a Dao fruit and pave the way for him to reach Dao-confirming realm. The brown-robed old man bowed again and said, after this person exchanged for 1.5 million points, he didn't know when to advance or retreat. He offended Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk at the Quest Hall's Dao-confirming exchange. Later, I heard that these two killed him in a sneak attack while he was in seclusion in his cave. Immediately bring Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk here. Man Huishan gave a snort and said without hesitation. It seemed that lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk, who were famous throughout the Grand Essence ruins, were just ants in his eyes. Chapter 873. Ning Qing naturally didn't know that Manjurin had not only escaped back to the Grand Essence Sea but also restored his corporeal body. He disguised himself as a man in embroidered robes and rented a new cave abode. After rearranging the cave abode's restrictions, he entered the quintessential world. Ning Qing then transplanted the withering Dao fruit tree into the true spirit world. Ning Qing not only placed more than 100,000 spirit crystals under the Dao fruit tree but also left several pieces of law soil under it. After entrusting Chasing Bull to look after the Dao fruit tree, Ning Qing came out of the true spirit world and took out the incomplete spiritual consciousness cultivation method he obtained from the exchange meet. Carefully opening the restrictions on this broken cultivation method, Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness seeped in. A moment later, a series of messages appeared in Ning Qing's memories. The Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, the #1 spiritual will cultivation technique under the Chaos Realm. The opening sentence startled Ning Qing. What was this Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll? He actually dared to say that it was the #1 spiritual will cultivation technique beneath the primal chaos. The creation of this cultivation method was inspired by the North Sea. The North Sea came out of the Kun, and it was thousands of miles wide. Even after transforming into a peng, who knows how many thousands of miles it will cover. Everyone knew that the rock was huge and could fly millions of miles. However, few people knew that when the rock opened its mouth, it could swallow more than a few thousand miles. Spiritual will is an intangible thing, and the rock can swallow the heaven and earth. How can an intangible spiritual will be inferior to the rock of the northern underworld? A certain darkness devours gods, devours the divine will of heaven and earth, devours the sea of consciousness of all living beings, and devours all things incorporeal. However, the sun waxes and wanes, and the moon waxes and wanes. No matter how strong the technique was, it would still have its flaws. If one sea of consciousness was not strong, there was no benefit in cultivating it, and it would explode after a long time. Even if one sea of consciousness is strong, he can only devour the sea of consciousness of other cultivators. He can't last long. I am very regretful. The ignorant and foolish see the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll as the world's most vicious. It's a pity that I can't devour all the ignorant and foolish people. After a while, Ning Qing finally put down this incomplete cultivation method, and was secretly shocked in his heart. He was sure that the person who created this Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll was a paranoid person who viewed the lives of others as ants. This Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll was simply a transformation technique, grand technique, or a star-sucking cultivation method. However, unlike the transformation technique, grand technique, the former devoured internal force, while the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll devoured the cultivator's spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness. Others said that this cultivation method was vicious, but it wasn't wrong. This cultivation method was indeed vicious. Think about it, others had painstakingly cultivated for countless years, only to have their spiritual sense devoured in a single exchange with you, and even their sea of consciousness was destroyed. It would be strange if anyone liked this kind of cultivation method. Moreover, this Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll had flaws, just like the great art of transformation. Swallowing too much spiritual sense would cause one sea of consciousness to explode. If this problem was not solved, no matter how powerful this cultivation technique was, no one would dare to cultivate it. No wonder someone would sell this cultivation technique after obtaining it. Ordinary people really wouldn't dare to cultivate this kind of thing. To be honest, Ning Qing did not have a favorable impression of the great art of transforming cultivation. Even though the creator of this technique gave it a nice-sounding name of the Dark North Divine Technique, the principle was the same. Through the method of parasitism, it absorbed the internal energy of others. Judging from the cultivation method of this cultivation method, the cultivator who created this cultivation method was indeed a genius among geniuses. But to say that it was the #1 spiritual sense cultivation method under the primal chaos realm, Ning Qing didn't think much of it. Maybe the person who created this cultivation method eventually died because of this cultivation method. Because he swallowed too much spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness, he ended up exploding his own sea of consciousness. But in any case, Ning Qing admired the theory of this cultivation method. Swallowing the spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness of a cultivator, Ning Qing disdained to do it. This cultivation method violated the moral bottom line in Ning Cheng's heart. However, Ning Qing saw many attacking methods from this cultivation method, some of which even contained great spirit techniques. Moreover, Ning Qing also felt very interested in the other theories of this cultivation method. Although the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll mainly talked about swallowing the spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness of a cultivator, but it proposed to swallow the spiritual sense of heaven and earth, to swallow all invisible things. Both were methods to increase one's spiritual consciousness, which made Ning Qing very interested. This meant that this cultivation method could increase one's spiritual consciousness by swallowing some spiritual fruits and spiritual grasses that had an effect on one's spiritual consciousness. One could also strengthen one's spiritual consciousness by swallowing all the invisible and invisible thoughts in the universe. This kind of invisible and invisible thoughts included the thoughts released by various treasures, as well as some mind power that automatically formed in the starry sky. This was similar to absorbing spiritual chi for cultivation, which was equivalent to opening up another way to cultivate one's spiritual consciousness. It was no longer the same as absorbing starry sky spiritual chi to advance one's spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness. Instead, it was through spiritual consciousness cultivation, which allowed one's spiritual consciousness to advance on its own. Ning Qing decided to use his own deductions and combine them with the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll to evolve his own spiritual consciousness attacks. It would be best if he could create a new cultivation method for spiritual consciousness cultivation. Because the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll was incomplete, it only had the first 4 levels. The first level was spiritual consciousness transformation, the second level was sea of consciousness mutation, the third level was starry sky sea of consciousness, and the fourth level was sea of consciousness formless. Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness had already transformed into a starry skies sea of consciousness. Ning Qing didn't know if his sea of consciousness had mutated or not. However, he knew that his sea of consciousness had evolved into a starry sky sea of consciousness after going through the Nirvana Thunder Tribulation. As for the sea of consciousness becoming formless, it was a sign that the starry sky sea of consciousness had advanced once again. Once the sea of consciousness became formless, even if one didn't use a spiritual consciousness cultivation method, one could still transform it into a world when fighting against an enemy. At that time, the enemy could walk into the sea of consciousness and be slaughtered by you. Ning Qing didn't care about the sea of consciousness becoming formless. A real powerhouse wouldn't walk into the other party's sea of consciousness. As for ordinary opponents, Ning Qing didn't need to let the other party walk into his sea of consciousness. What he cared about was that once the sea of consciousness became formless, his sea of consciousness would increase by leaps and bounds. It would even form a faint connection with the surrounding starry sky, which was the true meaning of formless. However, Ning Qing felt very interested in the several spiritual consciousness spirit techniques within the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. Spiritual Consciousness Chop, this was a spirit technique that could directly attack the other party's sea of consciousness when fighting against an enemy. This was completely different from when he used spiritual consciousness thorns and spiritual consciousness blades to sneak attack the other party's sea of consciousness. This was an open and aboveboard attack on the other party's sea of consciousness, which could not be resisted. The spiritual consciousness chop turned into continuous mountain-shaped blade lights, which could cut through several or even dozens of spiritual consciousness blade lights. The specific number of spiritual consciousness blade lights that could be cut out depended on the strength of the opponent and the degree of control over the spiritual consciousness chop. Dark Consciousness Storm, this was a spiritual consciousness spirit technique that combined the laws of space. This spirit technique required one to control the laws of space and combine one's spiritual consciousness with the laws of space to attack the opponent. However, this wasn't an attack on the other party's sea of consciousness, but a physical attack. In this Dark Consciousness Storm, the opponent's spiritual consciousness would be suppressed and directly sucked into the spiritual consciousness storm space. Ning Qing rented a cave in the Grand Essence Ruins public square for a year. However, he didn't go into secluded cultivation, nor did he rush to transform his spirit essence. After mastering the spiritual consciousness chop and dark consciousness storm, Ning Cheng began to learn artifact crafting. He already had a lot of materials on him, plus the materials he bought with points. Even if he continued to craft artifacts for a year or two, he would have more than enough materials. As for alchemy, he would only refine a few furnaces of medicinal pills when crafting artifacts got boring. In the Grand Essence Ruins quest hall, a white-robed woman stared at one of the big quest screens with red eyes. She had been standing there staring for nearly an hour without moving an inch. This was a wanted mission screen, and there was a very eye-catching mission on it. Capture lifeless poison hand O Yendu, reward 2 million points. The reward for capturing the heartless monk Ju Mei was also 2 million points. Capture heartless monk Ju Mei, reward 2 million points. But the premise was that they had to be alive. One could say that the reward for this quest was almost comparable to the Grand Essence Spirit Thunder quest. However, many people knew that they could only look at this quest. If they really wanted to catch these two notorious people, they would have to die. Fortunately, the reward for providing information about this quest was 500,000 points, which was just too generous. Almost everyone thought that this quest must have come from the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square's cave. After all, these two people had attacked the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square's cave before. Because of this, the reputation of the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square's cave didn't decline. Instead, it rose to a whole new level. Many cultivators' confidence in the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square's cave rose again because of this quest. For a time, the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square's cave couldn't even be rented with a silver card. Rushue, how come you're here? I was just about to go back and bring you here. A clear and pleasant voice rang out beside the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman looked back and saw an equally pretty female cultivator in blue robes. Her eyes flashed with surprise and she called out, Yenji. But then, her eyes dimmed, and she even lowered her head. Yenji had just returned from a mission in the Grand Essence Ruins. She originally planned to go to the Boundary Essence Spirit Sea City and bring Nalan Rushue. But now that she saw Nalan Rushue here, she naturally felt happy. But when she saw Nalan Rushue's expression, she understood what happened and quickly asked, what happened? Let's go somewhere else. After Nalan Rushue finished speaking, she walked out of the quest hall first. In a rest stop in the Grand Essence Ruins, Yenji's face turned pale as she listened to Nalan Rushue's words. Her entire body trembled. She had excellent qualifications and was the kind of person who cultivated hard. Coupled with the opportunities she encountered in the Grand Essence Ruins, she advanced from the heaven-seated realm to the life and death realm in just a few years. According to her original plan, she would bring Nalan Rushue from the Boundary Essence Spirit Sea City to the Grand Essence Ruins. Then, the two of them would do the quest together. Once her cultivation advanced to the Eternal Realm, her attainments in the Tao of Arrays would also improve. At that time, she could perfect the teleportation array under the Grand Essence Sea and teleport back to find Ning Cheng. But she never expected to hear the bad news about Ning Cheng from Nalan Rushue's mouth. Ning Cheng also went to the Boundary Essence Spirit Sea City to find her. In the Boundary Essence Spirit Sea City, Ning Cheng took Nalan Rushue to the Grand Essence Ruins. But when he went into seclusion in the Grand Essence Ruins Public Square Cave, Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk joined forces and killed him. The Grand Essence Ruins Public Square Cave had issued a high reward for the two people who attacked the cave. But unfortunately, they hadn't even seen the shadow of the two. Seeing Yenji's pale face and trembling body, Nalan Rushue suddenly felt a little lost. Compared to Yenji's feelings for Ning Cheng, her feelings for Ning Cheng didn't seem to be pure. Chapter 874. Rushue, I'm leaving. Yenji stood up. Although her face was still pale, her tone seemed to have calmed down. Nalan Rushue also stood up. She had been with Yenji for a long time and knew her very well. Yenji had an independent personality and was very assertive. From a certain point of view, Yenji was much stronger and more independent than her. Even if she had lived alone in the starry sky for many years, she still couldn't compare to Yan-ji. She also knew that Yan-ji had decided to kill lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk. However, she didn't try to persuade Yan-ji. She knew that she couldn't persuade Yan-ji. Yan-ji always planned before taking action. She would never act impulsively. Even if she wanted to kill these two people, she wouldn't do it immediately. I'm leaving too. You have to be careful. I got the inheritance. After I reach Dao sculpting in the future, I will come back here. Naylan Rushue just told Yan-ji to be careful. Since Ning Qing had fallen, she wouldn't stay on the periphery of the Grand Essence Ruins public square. She wanted to finish her own things. If Yan-ji hadn't killed these two people after she reached Dao sculpting, she would take action. After going into seclusion for a year, Ning Qing heard about what happened a year ago. He guessed that Heartless Monk would come to find him, but he didn't expect that he would actually go. It seemed that it was always good to prepare for a rainy day. After leaving the cave, Ning Qing wore the mask he had refined and came to the quest hall. He had refined artifacts for a year, but he could only refine low-rank spirit artifacts. Because it was a mask-type weapon that he refined himself, ordinary Dao sculpting cultivators wouldn't be able to see his appearance. Even cultivators above Dao sculpting wouldn't be able to see through him if they didn't use their spiritual consciousness to scan him. He was just an inconspicuous rogue cultivator on a mission. Therefore, there shouldn't be any experts specifically looking for him. What's more, there weren't many experts above Dao sculpting in the Grand Essence Ruins public square. Ning Qing quickly found that he was wrong. A year ago, there weren't many experts above the Dao sculpting realm here. In fact, there were only a few of them. This time, as soon as he entered the quest hall, he saw 7 or 8 powerful auras. Even if he didn't use his spiritual consciousness to scan them, he knew that these experts had stronger cultivation than Dao sculpting cultivators. Ning Qing took in a deep breath and converged his aura. Then, he looked at the big screen with many ordinary cultivators. It didn't take long for Ning Qing to find the quest to capture the Heartless Monk and Lifeless Poison Hand. Ning Qing didn't care about the mission. Since these two dared to attack a cave in the Grand Essence Ruins public square, it made sense for them to be wanted by the Grand Essence Ruins public square. However, Ning Qing soon did not think so, because he saw the reward for the two of them. It was 2 million points for each of them. Moreover, they wanted them alive. Even those who provided information about these two people would be able to obtain 500,000 points, which made Ning Qing's heart suddenly skip a beat. He was just an insignificant rogue cultivator here. Even if someone sneak attacked him and killed him, the Grand Essence Ruins public square's cave would never pay such a high price to capture these two people. The only possibility was that this wasn't a task issued by the Grand Essence Ruins public square cave. The G and the mission, not the mission. The mission. And the two. Tian, only. Only, Cheng, dead, and the king. And, Su. Only, the two, it, he. And had. Only, he, of Ning Qing started to hypothesize that if this wanted person was after him, or if this person wanted to know if he had truly fallen or not, then looking for the living lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk would be excusable. But who would pay such a high price to find him? The most likely suspects were lifeless Poison Hand and the Heartless Monk. But these two were wanted. Apart from them, there was only Beyond Heaven Path. He had only offended a few people since coming to the Grand Essence Ruins. Ning Qing also knew that Beyond Heaven Path wouldn't dare to look for him through the Heartless Monk and Lifeless Poison Hand. What's more, Beyond Heaven Path didn't have the strength to do so. Ning Qing walked to a corner of the quest hall and asked for a cup of ordinary spiritual tea. He picked up the spiritual tea and took a sip unconsciously. Just as he was about to put down the spiritual tea, he saw a man with a striped face walk into the quest hall. Ninth Prince? Ning Qing quickly determined that this person wasn't the Ninth Prince. This person's face looked similar to the Ninth Prince, Manjuran. He had a few lines on his face and looked a bit similar. But he definitely wasn't Manjuran. Thinking of Manjuran, the leaf covering Ning Cheng's thoughts suddenly opened up, and Ning Cheng's heart suddenly became as clear as a mirror. The Grand Essence C's ninth prince had returned. Only his father had the courage to come up with so many points to find Ning Cheng's whereabouts. Since the ninth prince's father had such courage, it naturally wasn't just to avenge the ninth prince. Rather, it was because of his five-colored star splitter arrow. Manjuran knew about the power of his five-colored star splitter arrow. Presumably, Manjuran would tell this news to his father, which meant that his father had come looking for the five-colored star splitter arrow. Ning Cheng didn't know the cultivation of the ninth prince's father. But Ning Cheng could guess that his father was definitely a super powerhouse. Facing such a powerhouse, an eternal cultivator, looking for him, Ning Cheng's heart suddenly turned cold. He felt sure that once any news about him leaked out, he wouldn't be able to escape to the Grand Essence ruins. Ning Cheng forced himself to calm down. He slowly took in a deep breath and thought about what he should do. Although the man with the striped face wasn't Manjuran, he definitely had a relationship with Manjuran. Maybe he was Manjuran's brother. After drinking the spiritual tea, Ning Cheng stood up. Since the ninth prince's father had put a bounty on his head, he couldn't come here wearing a mask again. If he appeared with a mask-type weapon, people wouldn't recognize him at first glance. But at the same time, he would also attract the most suspicion. An hour later, Ning Cheng entered the depths of the Grand Essence ruins. He took off the mask and changed his appearance in a straightforward way. Under Ning Cheng's deliberate actions, the original contours of his face turned into an ordinary face. The first impression that this face gave people was that it had to do missions in the Grand Essence ruins over a long period of time. On his exposed neck, there was even a scar left behind by a poison-attributed demonic beast. His hair was no longer gray but had turned ashen white. After doing all this, Ning Cheng felt a little relieved. Although these changes would gradually disappear as he cultivated, or he could remove them with a drop of Glimmer of Dawn Ice essence, at least for now, no one would recognize him as Ning Cheng. For a powerful Starry Sky cultivator, the easiest thing to change was one's appearance. What was truly difficult to change was a person's aura. A person's cultivation method determined that person's aura. If Ning Cheng didn't have the mysterious yellow formless, he wouldn't have changed his appearance in vain. It might be difficult for others to change their aura, but it wasn't difficult for the mysterious yellow formless. The mysterious yellow formless was invisible and formless, and it could change one's aura. As long as it wasn't someone close to him, no one would be able to recognize him from his aura. Unless a top-level powerhouse had known Ning Cheng for a long time and saw him changing his aura, that person would be able to find clues about him. In fact, the strongest person Ning Cheng knew before was Pan Qian. A few days later, Ning Cheng, with his appearance and aura completely changed, returned to the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Hall. He wanted to see if anyone could recognize him. If someone could, he would immediately escape to the Grand Essence Ruins. Half a year later, an artifact crafting stall in the Grand Essence Ruins public square became famous. This artifact crafting stall was called Wanderer Artifact Crafting, and the owner of the artifact crafting stall was called Wanderer. This wanderer's cultivation and appearance couldn't be compared to the magic treasures he had refined. Don't look at Wanderer's ordinary appearance, which made him look unremarkable. However, the low-rank spirit artifacts he crafted were top-notch. They were even more beautiful and powerful than the low-rank spirit artifacts in the Quest Hall's merchant house. But that wasn't the main point. Wanderer only needed to provide the materials and then provide some points or spirit crystals for the artifact crafting stall. This way, the price was only half of the price in the Quest Hall's merchant house. No cultivator in the Grand Essence Ruins didn't know about Wanderer's artifact crafting stall. Most cultivators who wanted low-rank spirit artifacts wouldn't go to the merchant house to buy them. Instead, they would come to this artifact crafting stall. Unfortunately, this artifact crafting stall could only refine low-rank spirit artifacts. It couldn't refine middle-rank spirit artifacts. This artifact crafting stall was located not far from the Grand Essence Ruins Quest Hall. Every month, one had to pay a lot of points to the quest hall. Many people tried to persuade Wanderer to set up his stall in another place. They would also go there and buy a shop. However, this Wanderer was a bit dull. Not only was he not good with words, but he also didn't know how to do business. As usual, he paid the points to the quest hall and set up his stall next to the quest hall. Wanderer's artifact crafting stall was naturally set up by Ning Cheng. He set up the Wanderer's artifact crafting stall next to the quest hall. Earning points was just a side job. What he really wanted to wait for was Yan Ji. As long as Yan Ji came back to hand over the task, he would immediately see her. Because of the ninth prince's attention, he didn't dare to publicly issue a task to find Yan Ji. Therefore, he could only use this method to wait. Half a year later, Ning Cheng could already refine middle-rank spirit artifacts. He could even barely refine ordinary high-rank spirit artifacts. However, he still only refined low-rank spirit artifacts. He knew that even with the quest hall's protection, he couldn't really snatch the business of those merchant houses. He could only refine low-rank spirit artifacts. Moreover, he paid the points to the quest hall every month. Therefore, he could stay here for a long time without any problems. The only thing that disappointed Ning Cheng was that even after half a year, he still hadn't seen Yan Ji's shadow. Ning Cheng didn't know if Yan Ji had joined a sect in the Grand Essence domain or if she was doing a task in the depths of the Grand Essence ruins. However, Ning Cheng could rest assured about one thing. Countless spiritual consciousnesses had checked him over the past 6 months, and no one had suspected anything. On this day, Ning Cheng was helping a rogue cultivator craft a low-rank spirit artifact when he felt a spiritual consciousness that made him tremble in fear sweep over him. It felt as if someone would see through him at this moment. Ning Cheng suddenly looked up and saw a middle-aged man wearing an imperial crown walking towards the quest hall. Although this man didn't release any aura to suppress him, Ning Cheng felt like he was looking up at him. This was definitely the most powerful cultivator he had seen since coming to the Grand Essence ruins. This person was even more powerful than the red-haired man. Ning Cheng couldn't sense the extent of this man's cultivation. When Ning Cheng saw Manjuran, who had already restored his corporeal body, he instantly understood that this man wearing an imperial crown must be Manjuran's cheap father.